it was an agent that I was in school with, that he was just starting out. So we were just two kids figuring everything out. And he put it on Facebook and got a tattoo operator.
Okay.
And that was at $2,000 a month. And that worked out really well because that was triple net. And then
that is really nice. Then, yeah.
But the killer was the big building. We ended up getting an event center that was $6,000 a month, triple net, on a $200,000 and some building. So the cash flow was nuts, right? And we were making $4,500, $5,000 easy off of that, and something off the other. Well, they reappraise a year later, and we go from that 330 we bought plus the 20% down we put in, or minus, I should say. But they appraised at $1.2 million, and so we look at this appraisal and we're just blown, right? So the bank's like, well, we won't give you a cash out. You're young. It's a single tenant building for each. We don't really want to. You give you this kind of money and you go run wild. So we'll give you a line of credit. That opened the floodgates. Then I had capital. And from then, that's where all the rental side started building.
This is the Twin Cities Real Estate Investing Show. Real stories, real success in Twin Cities real estate. Join your hosts, Adam Tafel and Tim Swierczek, as they dive into the world of Twin Cities real estate investing. Together, they share valuable insights and practical tips to help both new and seasoned investors navigate the Minneapolis-St. Paul market. With a focus on relatable stories from real people, this show will empower you with the knowledge and confidence to thrive in your investing journey. Guys, take it from here.
What's up, Tim?
Hot damn. That was pretty cool. What a great episode.
Yeah.
I get to say it this time.
I had to do the intro and outro without you last week.
Know, yeah.
Did you listen at all? Did you know? Do you know how I did?
I have no idea.
I think I did okay.
Yeah. No idea.
Ozzy just left, and he's got good energy. He's a younger guy. He's got a pretty impressive portfolio, and he's doing some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, I mean, so like most of our guests are not like what I would call bigger pockets guests. And what I mean by that is like the person who goes from 0 to 100 in just a couple of years. And he went from 0 to 83 in 3 years. There's just a ton of stuff, and we don't start there. So you're going to have to listen to the whole damn thing to get the best stuff, because some of his most killer stuff is all the way at the end. So that's the teaser for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I like Ozzy, and it's a good conversation. But first, please support the sponsors. One of the hardest parts of investing is finding a solid property manager. I've worked with plenty over the years. Some are better than others. Earlier this year, I did a 10-unit deal where John and his team at RPM Viking handled the management for our mutual out-of-state client. They were professional. They were responsive. They delivered exactly as promised. Now they are my #1 management referral, and I'm proud to have them supporting the show. Learn more at rpmviking.com. Use the code TCREI300 for $300 off maintenance services when you sign up with RPM Viking as your property manager. Thanks for sponsoring the show. Welcome to the Twin Cities Real Estate Investing Show, brought to you by Shook. Shook is the all-in-one platform to help you manage your rentals, built for real estate investors just like us. Shook features maintenance and expense tracking, including tenant-generated maintenance tickets and an IRS-aligned expense tracker. At just $5 a unit per month, it's worth checking out shookrentals.com. That's SHUK rentals.com, or booking a live demo in the show notes. Now, on to the episode. Investors, if a deal gets messy, call Network Title. They can handle the BRRRR, the 1031, mixed use, commercial, whatever it takes, so you can close on time. Working with Network Title is kind of like having another personal assistant. That's how on the ball these people are. Network Title, complex deals made simple. Link in the show notes. Speaking of the city's bullshit policies, did you guys... Nate Hood sent me a text today with some sort of like pending legislation about just cause vacancy. I want to say it's a state statute. Have you guys heard anything about this?
Not a state statute, and no, I haven't.
No, me neither.
So St. Paul tried to pass this thing. It was like the SMART action plan years ago, maybe in like 2019 or 2018 even. And one of the stipulations, there was a bunch of tenant protection laws. And one of the stipulations was that to hit a tenant with a non-renewal, you needed to have just cause.
Yeah, it's like one of the worst forms of rent control.
Yeah. So you can't keep it. You need. So if you have a bad tenant, you can't just not renew their lease.
Yeah.
Or if you need to sell a property and you need to get somebody out of there,
or you want to remodel, or you want like it doesn't even have to be a bad tenant. It just might be someone like that you don't get along with, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of corporate tenants that are using that, like you said, to get around, or corporate landlords that are using this to get around rent control and shuffling tenants around. So especially tenants that might be on a subsidy or something like that, where they're not going to eat that whole cost of the rent increase. They were shuffling them around between this property to that one, and they'd cycle through it that way, and that would never apply to them on the rent control side.
Well, yeah, and so no, I mean, what Nate sent me, it's a link to the Minnesota legislature. Here, I'll put it up on the screen.
Yeah, let's see what this is all about. I mean, the downside to that for any landlord is when you go to sell your property, you're going to have to bribe the tenants to let you sell it.
Yeah.
And it can be thousands of dollars. And what'll happen is a whole legal industry will pop up from it, where attorneys will add their chunk. So you'll be paying for the attorneys and the tenant, and then it gets up to 10, 15,000. It's all a negotiation. And
I wonder
if you want to sell your own property, you'll need to pay.
Sure. I mean, is that not a just cause if you're looking to sell?
Well, I guess it depends.
Well, here, I'll tell you. Just cause required. Here are the different reasons. And I mean, stay tuned. I think this is being considered. It says Office of the Revisor of Statutes. Its introduction. It was posted on the 14th of April. SF 1671. If you want to look it up at home.
That tells me it's SF is a Senate bill, right, instead of a House bill. So this is in the Minnesota Senate.
So here are the types of just cause if this bill gets through. Non-payment of rent. That's an easy one. Repeated late payment of rent, but that's got to be 5 times in a 12-month period.
That's a ridiculous amount.
A material breach. So basically just, going against one of the stipulations of your lease. Well, gosh, you could start to just put like very particular things in your lease.
Yeah.
I guess. You got to wear blue on Tuesdays. Refusal to renew, obviously. Occupancy by landlord or family member. Withdrawal from market. The landlord seeks to withdraw, demolish the property. Oh, here we go. To sell it. Oh, but in a condo conversion. Convert the unit into a subsidized unit.
There we go. 2, provide tenants with 180-day prior notice to the termination. Provide 1 month's rent as a relocation fee. Partial withdrawal. But
you still have to, in order to do this, 180-day notice, don't you still have to fall within one of these?
No,
or am I reading that incorrectly?
That's just one of the. So basically, what it's saying is that if you want to sell it, you have the right to, but you got to give them 180-day notice, and you got to give them
30 days of relocation costs.
And then at the bottom, it'll say if they catch you renting it within the next 5 years, then they can sue for damages.
Yeah, but it's under the subheading of building demolishment.
Yeah, like what damages?
It's a withdrawal from market.
Yeah.
First, so those are different items: withdrawal from market or building demolishment or conversion.
What does withdrawal from market mean?
Withdrawal from the rental market, so it's no longer a rental. So you can always take a property, forfeit your rental license, and then go ahead and.
Oh,
and maybe then you could sell it.
You can sell it.
Okay.
Can you go up to the top, actually, the very top? Because there's just because. So you're not allowed to refuse to renew a lease unless one of these grounds for termination is described.
Yeah.
Sufficient written.
Oh, sorry.
Sufficient, because the devil's in the details a lot of times in laws, so you got to kind of know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so not too crazy at the top, but I wanted to read to make sure there wasn't anything really particular in there. Yeah, I mean, this would be awful for the state of Minnesota.
Oh, hey, for rehab, check this out. Rehab and rehabilitation and renovation. So there you go.
Mm-hmm.
But what if your unit doesn't need it? I
Wait,
mean,
but I mean,
you can like literally, you're going to have to pay for an attorney to prove that you need to rehab. And if you think I'm kidding, that's exactly that's the end result of this.
Maybe.
That's 3.
If you hit somebody with a non-renewal,
Mm-hmm.
then they want to fight you in court, then you're paying for an attorney.
Then
yeah, well, right, but they'll have initially it'll just be home line, but eventually there will be, it's the equivalent of an ambulance chaser, but it's a lease chaser. And so eventually it'll be like, I will get you $10,000 because this guy said he wants to remodel his place. And the attorney will basically sue, saying, you don't really need to remodel. You're just trying to illegally force my tenant out. Pay us a bribe, which is a settlement or
something. Well, the language
that is what happens. That's
for sure. The language that's in that clause. Well, first of all, I mean, what landlords are going to do is pick the easiest clause and use that, right? Sure. So that might not be the easiest route to go. If you're looking to sell, then sell.
Well, yeah, but then that's. Do you notice they gave 6 months?
6 month notice.
6 month notice, right? So the reason why that's a problem is most people, if they decide to sell, they need to sell in less than 6 months, right?
Sure.
And that's just to get the people out. It's not like closing date sale, right?
Yeah.
It's like to start your process of selling. So they did that on purpose. And the reason why they do this on purpose is because then it forces the whole bribe thing, because you can't wait 6 months. So to get them to move early, because you already got to give them 1 month.
Yeah.
Now, like I said, you're talking $10,000 checks,
for sure,
$15,000 checks.
I would be very surprised if this ends up going through. One, because of how this language is written. I mean, it just seems like it's going to cause a lot more chaos, like you said.
Well, it's awful, but I mean,
or similar to rent control, they're going to water it down because the landlords are going to be like, well, add this, add that. And then it's going to be meaningless. We just wasted a ton of time not really helping the tenants out because there's an easy way to give anybody notice, right? I'm not saying as it's written now there's an easy way, but that's I think typically what happens.
Well, and then what's going to happen naturally out of this is going to be a tightening up of our leases, right? Where we have the opportunity to give a certain amount of grace period days, whereas now rent's due on the 1st. And so if you pay on the 2nd, I'm just going to document your lease violation. Mm-hmm. And most people, especially depending on the demographic you're in, whether you're in a Class D asset or C, you're probably going to have enough of those within a year where somebody's waiting to get paid on Friday. And so it's like, we'll document it, and if the tenant's good and we've always got paid by the 4th or 5th or whatever the case may be, we might not want you to leave. But if we need you to, then all those documentations are there.
Yeah, good point. That'll definitely be one of the ramifications. There's all kinds of ones that we probably aren't thinking of. But the one I was talking about with the bribing, that happens in other states. We're not the first state to suggest this, and that is exactly what happens. There'll be attorney shops that their whole goal is to extort money out of you, and they'll sue you so that you settle with them, and then the tenant will get whatever 50% of the settlement, and the attorneys will get the other 50% or however it works.
Yeah.
And
what's up, Ozzy?
Yeah,
not a whole lot. Living the dream.
What's your last name?
Zahran.
Ozzy Zahran.
Yeah, a lot of Z's.
Cool.
So is Ozzy with a Y or is it an IE?
Y.
Okay.
OZZY. Yeah.
Like the musician.
Yeah. Rest in peace.
So how did we get here? How did you guys met at a meetup?
Yeah.
Ford Wagner's meetup?
Ford Wagner had a meetup, and I got invited through Miles from Shook, because I'm not like on that list. I don't even know. I found out later there isn't an actual list. You just have to be on their social media.
Yeah.
So I don't go on social media that much anymore, so I didn't see it. And anyway, I got invited by Miles, and then at the very end of the night, Miles was talking to Ozzy. He's like, and I was like, my son had been waiting in the car for like an hour and a half or so.
Yeah.
I'm like, I gotta leave, guys. Sorry, but Miles told me some really cool things about Ozzy, and I'm like, well, I just know we have to have you on the pod. I barely knew anything about Ozzy. Like, I shook his hand. We said hi. I teased him a little bit, actually. I'm like, nice not to meet you is what I said. And then I had to cruise, and so we just connected, and here we are.
Cool. How was that? Yeah, that's what we were talking about. And then I'm like, oh, save it for the podcast. I want to go to Ford Wagner's next Burr meetup so I can figure out how I've kind of have the Burr figured out, but then the property always breaks even after my refi. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're buying in different neighborhoods, though. That's part of it.
You got to do like Section 8
I'd say it makes it easier.
to cash flow.
Well, and he also has such higher deal flow than you do, right? I mean, he is constantly every day only looking for properties like this, and between
he's getting them a bit more distressed and cheaper.
Yeah.
But I don't know, dude. I'm
not saying you don't. You have good deal flow.
Yeah.
His deal flow is on another level compared to what, right? I mean, he turns down, I'm sure, a deal a day.
For sure.
In order to buy the amount of deals he does, he has to, right? I mean, like, you can't even buy that many unless you're getting that kind of volume, you know?
I mean, there's tons of ways to do it. I always say the easiest way to make your money is on the construction side. So if you have in-house teams or something along those lines where you can control your costs, your GC budget is what you're ending up pulling out of the Burr at the end, right?
Yeah.
So that's the easiest way to do it.
But my construction costs are incredibly cheap, aren't they, Tim?
They are.
I don't know of anyone getting cheaper construction, but Ford has
Well, he has actually
employees.
hourly employees,
Yeah.
and that is even different level yet.
That's what I do.
Right.
Yeah. So hourly employees, except for trades, you know, and that's how you're going to make your money.
I was just here's a good example for those of you listening. I was at another real estate office this Tuesday, and they had a window and door company in there. And granted, they were selling higher end windows than what I would normally put in a rental, but their entry level price per window was $1,000. They said, like, basically we can't do one for less than $1,000. And I know for a fact that I have contractors that will install them fully installed, insulated, painted, totally done, $250 a window, which is actually you can get it cheaper than that, but that is a doable price, $250 a window plus the cost of the window. So $500 to $600 a window, right?
Right.
And they were charging $1,000 for something on that similar level. And then I know from talking to my contractor that when they're doing it per hour, it's in a 1 hour job, and if you're paying, $40 an hour or whatever, that means it's $40, not $250.
Oh yeah.
So that is what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
So now you're picking up, let's say you're even paying, because you guys are great, and in order to keep them and everything with all expenses, you're $50 an hour, let's say, you're still saving $200 an hour over my price and $400 an hour over the true retail buyer's price.
It's true. And then having a team that, I've been blessed where the team that I have is kind of like a one-stop shop, again, with the exception of trades. So these guys are coming in and, 1 hour looks completely different than everybody else's 1 hour, where, 7 or 8 windows might be going in, but flooring is 2 at the same time, right? And so when you factor in what did you get for that hour, it starts to escalate really quickly. And that, every hour that you're beating that clock, you're making that money on that Burr side.
Yeah. So what I found out about Ozzy is he's a pretty young guy. We'll get into that, and he's got quite a few units in a construction company. So maybe let's could we back up and just tell us, like, where were you prior to real estate, and how'd you get into real estate?
I was in school. I was at the U of M for most of that time, and I think my last 2 years is when I really started dabbling. This is, I guess, before all those YouTube videos and social media scrolls about wholesaling, and I accidentally wholesaled the property.
Okay, what year are we talking here?
Geez, this must have been 2020 or 2019.
Because you're 26 years old?
26, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I did go to college early, so I did a PSEO program, so, that timeline. But, so that was kind of my first kick in the door. Locked up a property, and then I ended up getting a random call from guys in town that are actually now really huge, direct-to-consumer buyers.
Direct-to-consumer buyers?
Direct to sellers, yeah, I should say.
Oh, so they're big wholesalers, you're saying?
Big wholesalers, so think of like the Chris Lindahls of the world.
Like the Minnesota Home guys?
The Minnesota Home guys.
Like those guys?
Yeah. So, they actually called and they said, like, hey, you just kind of stepped on our toes. Like, mind you, I mean, it was a shot in the dark, how it came up. The guy, was shopping it around. Then I ended up finding it on Craigslist,
So you were just a kid in college looking on Craigslist?
Yeah.
And then you're like, I'm going to make an offer on this deal. Mm-hmm. What kind of deal was it?
That one at the time was a single family that turned out to be a duplex when you walked it. Then I checked with the city, and the city's like, well, this is a duplex, right? But everybody had it on their sheet as a single family. So I said, okay. There was already 2 kitchens. It's already split, and the city's already, has it
What
classified.
city?
Minneapolis.
Okay.
And it was over north. That was, it was leave off of Aldrich. Don't quote me on that.
Sure.
And yeah, so the gentleman had called and said, like, if you have the PA, assign it to us and we'll give you, I think at the time it was like 30 grand.
Oh.
What was your plan? What was your plan?
I thought you were going to hear 5 to 10.
No, it was a good one. Say that again.
Like, how were you going to buy this property as a 20-year-old college student if you didn't assign it?
I've always been really good with my money. So I started working at a really young age. So I had a little bit saved up to pay for it. But then at that time, there was a couple credit cards that had already pulled or signed up for with that 0% that you see. And like there was a couple limits where one was, 20,000, and then US Bank gave me a personal loan for about the same amount. So, I was just going to wing it and see how far you can get. And, construction was obviously a lot cheaper in 2020 than it is today. So that was the master plan. But yeah, they called and we ended up, I had to call a title company because I said, I don't own it yet. Let me close on it and I'll sell it back to you. And they kind of were explaining to a kid how you can assign something that you don't own. And that conversation went on for hours.
Yeah.
But ultimately, yeah, they closed and the title company called me in the middle of class and said, your check's ready.
I just made 30
I left
grand.
so quickly.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm out, guys.
Yeah. I left that classroom as quickly as I could to go pick that check up. Yeah.
That's awesome, dude. Did you grow up in Minnesota?
Yeah. Born and raised.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay. And what were you going to do before real estate? What was your plan when you went into college?
To be a lawyer, to be one of those guys that we were talking about.
Yeah. A lease chaser?
Lease chaser. Yeah.
All right. Cool.
So then what happened? So you did this one deal and then you're like, I'm going to try wholesaling, or what was your first official jump into real estate?
So that was the best part of it. And then it took a turn for the absolute worst on the next deal. So I bought a condemned Cat 2 property out in St. Paul. Did not know what that was at the time.
Oh. Did you know it was a Cat 2 even?
They said,
they said it, but you just didn't.
Well, Cat 2, you have to go through those approvals with the city.
Yeah.
So, me thinking this is the first deal, you don't know what's the difference between, it's your first crack at it.
Oh, sure.
So, you go and you talk to the inspector and they say, well, what do you want to do? Are you tearing it down? Are you rebuilding it? And they give you a code compliance report and all that fun stuff. And I couldn't tell you the difference between a screw and a nail. So when I'm reading this compliance report, it's like plumbing and it'll have 20 items. And I'm thinking in my head, we'll call the plumber and that'll fix that issue. So I bought that property for $80,000 out in St. Paul. And, I was thinking 6-month flip, probably going to cost about 40 grand. I probably ended up sinking 350 grand into it over the course of 3 years.
I'm sorry. Thank you for saying that. That is hilarious. And I'm glad you're laughing too.
Yeah. Now it's funny. Back then it was not.
Yeah.
No, it was terrible. And
I'm sorry, what neighborhood was it in?
So this is by West St. Paul on the Cesar Chavez area.
Great.
Yeah. So, I got lucky because I could have lost a lot more. But we sold during COVID, because that was the silver lining. We've held it for so long, going back and forth with the inspector. And the story was actually pretty funny, right? You have to go through steps with the code compliance, and everything has to go in order and everything has to get inspected. We ended up doing the complete opposite, right? I didn't know what a permit was. And so I brought some guys in, said, well, this house is too small, right? We cut the top of the roof. We go up a story. No engineering, no plans, just no permits, nothing. The inspector comes in and I'm calling for a final, mind you. He's like, and he's on the phone. And he's like, how are you calling for a final? Like, you got to call me and do you have any rough-ins? And what's that? And finally, after 10 minutes of confusion, he's like, don't worry about it. I'm going to come and take a look at what you got. And he comes and sees like a whole nother story built on top of it. And he's like, what the fuck is this? And XYZ. And Like, well, I can't stand on this. And he walks out the house. He's like, how do you know this isn't going to collapse? And, once you do it without plans or engineering, you realize there's very few engineers that will come in and, certify your work or try to work
After
around
the
that.
fact, right?
After the fact.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So battling for years, and inspector and I didn't get along, obviously.
Oh.
So that was a whole another shenanigans that took place.
I'm going through some of that right now.
Are you?
Yeah, it's not even my fault. It's someone else owns a property, but I'm helping them. And
It's a nightmare. You know? People don't really understand how much of a difference you get if an inspector likes you or if he doesn't. The code is black and white, but humans are not, right? And so it could go one of two ways. And that one ended up going a 3-year long project, multiple 6 figures.
And you're not allowed to have tenants in there.
Nothing.
Yeah.
There's no CO.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can't even really sell it, because if I were to sell it, you were at Ford's meeting and he showed you kind of that
The list. The list isn't checked off.
Yeah. If it's not checked off, then the next person has to get a copy of that list. And again, submit financials to the city to be able to prove that they can get this project, submit GC plans. So, you can imagine anybody that was going to buy it off of you was going to really lowball, relative to what you've spent on it.
I got red tagged on my first big renovation.
Did you?
Hadn't pulled a single permit, and I had gotten it. Whatever. Someone who I kind of look up to. He wasn't pulling permits on his deals, and he had hooked me up with one of his guys. So he's just like, yeah, just be careful. And I didn't really know what that meant, so I had like a huge dumpster in the driveway for weeks and weeks and weeks.
Yeah.
And then I got red tagged.
Dumpster's a big sign, right? You throw all this stuff in the garage or in the basement or whatever. Yeah.
Now if I still did things like that,
Yeah,
now I
for
wouldn't
sure.
know how to do it.
Yeah.
And so anyways, I called the guy right away, and he ended up being like the nicest guy in the world. He's like, oh, settle down. And I think it's probably one of those where like, if it's a pattern, they're probably going to, I don't think he'd be so cool the second time, but I'm just like, sir, I know I should have done it. What do I need to do? And he walked into a house with like finished basement, wall removed upstairs. And he did like do a little bit of due diligence, like went up into the attic to see that we put the beam in correctly for the wall removal and things like that. But it can go, better.
Minneapolis was great. I had one recently where we actually pulled permits, but the contractors didn't have all the inspections done. And I think there wasn't permits pulled for every single thing, which I didn't know, right? Like they were pulled for the electrical and the plumbing, but they didn't for the structural. And the Minneapolis guy came in and he was great. He's like, well, I want to see this, I want to see that, but I'm not going to kill you over it. St. Paul, kind of the opposite. It was just like such a S show. And like I said, this was like very minor things. And I won't get into all the details now, but like a window that was completely not needed in a basement that they made us replace because it didn't vent, even though 5 feet in one direction there was a venting window and 10 feet in another was a venting window.
Yeah.
Unfinished basement, but the one in the middle didn't vent. It's like,
Yeah.
So anyway, so you were doing this one in Cesar Chavez. That's where we're at. This is your second project?
Second, yeah.
Yeah. And so when did you sell that one?
I believe in January of 23.
Okay. And you lost a little bit of money on it?
Oh, I lost a
couple
good,
$100,000?
Yeah, it was a nasty one. The saving grace is that I ended up in the middle of those, and looking back at it, it was the right move, but it was scary at the time. I was taking on a couple more projects in the middle of going through that project over at Cesar Chavez. Excuse me. And those projects ended up floating a lot of those losses. So it worked out really well.
So tell us, so you do these first couple of deals, and then what are you thinking in your head at this point? Like, I'm a real estate investor, or like how do you go from just being a kid who did the one wholesale job to having a business?
You wing it for as long as you can until you find a system, right?
Yeah.
So you try a little bit of everything, and I think
even Ford did that, right? Like, I mean, his first deal was a bad deal, right? But he figured out what was bad, and
you go through, Well, this Cesar Chavez was actually really needed because that taught me construction. It was, a 3-year long construction course, if you really look at it, because we ended up touching everything from foundation to roof, and failing pretty much everything at least 2 or 3 times before we get to the next step, to where you take that knowledge onto the next job and you know so much now, from the permitting process to, even just how to deal with inspectors on a personal level, you learn the whole gig.
So let's talk about that a second, because I don't think a lot of people do know what, you get an inspector for the first time, or you call for an inspection. Walk us through how you're carefully, I'm trying to think of the right word, but like setting up the relationship. How
Sure.
are you starting the relationship?
Well, generally, speaking, depending on the city you're in, sometimes there's only 1 or 2 inspectors in general. So you got Columbia Heights that has 2, right?
I know.
And so, then you got Minneapolis, where you have to be doing a lot of volume of, again, pulling permits, because a lot of us, if we're being very transparent, you start to gauge which ones you think you're likely needing to pull permits on. And, if you ask the city, it's black and white, but this is not a city show, it's an investor show. So, you ask the investors, and it's like, well, am I going to sit here and pull a permit for everything? Probably not, if I'm being transparent. And that's me, right? But you get a feel for what you can do and what you can't. As far as the inspectors and the relationship goes, I think that you generally are going to figure out really quickly how that inspector is from the moment they step out of their car. Their attitude towards you. I mean, the inspector today, I was nothing but great with him, and, trying to be as polite as I can. And when they hammer you nonstop, that's not going anywhere. You always try, but the longer you're in the business, you're going to know where you can put your foot down. I wouldn't do it on your first one, for sure. It'll cost you some money. But then you get to figure out, okay, this inspector, I mean, there's no point. He's going to make me redo it, right? And some of them might just let certain things slide. But you always start off as polite, and, again, that's the famous contractor phrase. What would you like to see, right? I recommend that phrase.
What would you like to see?
That's the best phrase you can use, because it just puts them in the driver's seat. And I don't know anything, you know everything. What do you want, right? And they'll generally point out, do this and do that, and they'll get off your back.
Yeah. And then sometimes, though, they do ask for things that are either ridiculous or not needed, or actually not the actual code. I ran into that with a buddy of mine, the one who builds new houses in St. Paul. He's like, I had to put my foot down. They started asking me for things. He was like, that's not even code. Mm-hmm. This is the code. Yep. You're wrong. I'm right. And at some point you kind of have to, because some of them will make you do crazy stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But you have to know when that fine line is, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And he was saying yes, sir, a lot before that, I'm sure. Yeah.
So did you get like a job after school?
No.
Or you just went right into real estate?
Right into real estate.
So what was your first, I'm still just trying to understand your career trajectory here, right? So tell us about that. Because I understand Ford tried to be an agent, and then he worked for the developer, right? And then he did house hack stuff by himself. And then after all that stuff, he kind of had his business. So that's what I'm trying to get out of your story.
Yeah, I think it'll make a lot more sense once we go to deal number 3 and 4. That's where the story really unfolds.
Cool.
So I got really lucky because I walked into just a bunch of money. The deal that I got, or the 2 deals that I got while I was working on that Cesar Chavez property, one guy, middle of COVID, if you remember, you couldn't kick out your tenants for non-payment. So they had that moratorium, and that was the whole thing. There's a guy where, regular, worked a decent job, lives in Egan, but thought he'd take a crack at a duplex out in East St. Paul a couple years back, and his tenants obviously took advantage of the don't pay rent scenario. And so he had a duplex that he was kind of stuck with. And so when we connected, he said, listen, all I want is to be able to enjoy the summer with my family. I don't want to be here dealing with this, nonsense. And so I said, will you do a CD offer? Will you look at a CD offer? And he said, yeah. Short term, we'll do that. And so I just sent a flyer and see what sticks. So when I wrote the PA, or had the agent, I should say, write the PA, it was a 0 down CD with a 0% interest rate for 2 years. There's no way he takes this, but let's see. Comes back signed an hour later. And so I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah. I
think we signed for $135,000. We got creative and got those tenants out. So that was step 1.
Do you mind sharing that? Is there any lessons there or any tips?
You got to be careful with what you do. You know, I wouldn't necessarily go into specifics about it. You know, obviously cash for keys is always a good place to start. And so the upstairs tenant actually took it versus the downstairs that did not. Right. And so you got to do, I'll put it to you this way. You got to do one of two things at that point in time. You got to either claim that you're going to live in the thing or a family member will, you know, or you just got to wait through the rent freeze.
And frankly, you were young enough that you could just, I'm moving in. I bought this place, I'm moving in, right?
Yeah. So the judge obviously had said, you know, if we catch you selling the thing, you know, you'll be in big trouble. Sure.
Yeah.
All right.
Who's helping you at this time? Because you're doing some pretty sophisticated things for just like first couple of deals. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So my dad actually, I should have started with this. He's a broker, residential, kind of retired over the years. I mean, we'll do micro transactions here and there, but you know, he had enough knowledge to get the ball rolling. Where if I get stuck, he'll answer some questions.
So you mean real estate broker or mortgage?
Okay. A real estate broker. Okay. Yep.
What's his name?
Ziad.
Okay.
Ziad. So he owns Choice One Realty, and that was a big help. You get stuck on something, and it's like, well, I can write a PA, right? So there wasn't any financial help, although I wish, but there was a lot of knowledge that you can just, I mean, pick up the phone and get an answer super quick, and you know they never say no to helping.
Got it. So you buy at a price that's favorable, but you got 2 years of every dollar you pay them goes off the price, correct? That's what I'm understanding.
Every dollar. So my payment, I'll never forget, $400, and I'd have to drive a check over to him. Mind you, he had a mortgage on it with Wells Fargo, so he's paying interest. I don't know how he took that deal, but he did.
Yeah.
Right. And so, you know, I was starting to do the construction, and I'm just like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to sell this, whatever. And so I called the seller back and I said, I don't know if I really want to keep going with this. He said, whatever you need to get it done, we'll do. So he ended up reducing the price 50 grand, something like that. I remember it totaled out to be like a $90,000 payout to him. So we signed at 130, mid 130s, and then we ended up bringing it down back to 90. But I was almost done with the construction. So I said, okay.
I'm sorry, I need to work on my memory. This is a east side to St. Paul?
East St. Paul. Yep.
East
St. Paul. Yeah. Single family?
Duplex.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'll start taking notes. Sorry, go on.
No worries.
Had 2 non-paying tenants. One went out because of
cash for keys.
Cash for keys. The other one,
and
moved in and went to court or whatever.
The whole 9 yards. Yeah.
Yep.
So, you know, mortgage balance now remains at $90-some thousand because we got that reduction. Construction wasn't major, to be honest with you. I mean, they were pretty upkept. It was just really dirty. And so a lot of cleaning, a lot of painting, and, you know, coming off of that Cesar Chavez job, that was heaven. It was, you know, walk in the park.
Are you doing the work or are you hiring it out or what?
Yeah, I had the same guys that did all that stuff for me back in the day are my same guys today. Okay. So, you know, there were some guys that I found and, you know, just kind of stuck it with me. At the time, it was $15 an hour for everybody, and the guy that was responsible for, you know, the whole crew was $20.
Yep.
So, you know, 4 guys at that time wasn't that, you know, killer of a price point. So we get the construction done. I think we had 25 into it, and I ended up selling it off market to an agent. I'll tell you who this agent, how he ties into everything else. He calls me and he says, "Hey, do you still have that property?" He knew I was working on. And I said, yeah. And so he said, well, I represent a guy that's out of state, and he wants it for his employees. He owns a moving company. I said, okay. So they come in, and I think they come in with an offer right around $270. And so that worked out really well, because I think after we got that reduction, you're at $90-some thousand.
Yeah.
And then you have, you know, 20 or 30 in construction costs. And then you sell at $270 off market. So even when we went through that, hey, if you sell, you'll be in trouble, that worked itself out kind of naturally.
Because it was never on the market.
It was never on the market.
There was a transfer, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. You'd have to look.
But now you got some real seed money to do some stuff, because you probably have a couple hundred now.
Well, that was what kept on funding Cesar Chavez, because I was still working out in the middle.
Oh, got it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, you know, because at the time I was running out of money constantly. You go and borrowing credit cards and this and that. So that was a huge influx. And I just kept on dumping it until, you know, we got that to the finish line. But the major deal, we had bought So I bought these 2 buildings on Payne Avenue in St. Paul. Still have those to this day. One was a vacant church. Okay. Church was selling it to upsize, I guess. And a couple days later, after we close on that building, so the way it's set up is you got that vacant building on the left side. You got the middle building, which is a smoke shop, which is independent. And then you have a chiropractor that was on the right, right? And the only parking is tied to that chiropractor, right? So I bought the building all the way on the left, which was a church. And then the chiropractor comes up for sale right after we close. And so I call my bank and they're like, hey, slow down. You got a bunch of stuff going on. But they saw the vision because they knew that you're going to need parking. And that was the only way to get it. And so that church, we picked up for I think we ended up closing at like 233. But it was 8,500 square feet, commercial kitchen. I mean, huge monster of a building. Had no plans for it. I just knew 200 was single family price, and this is massive. So I love it. So I thought I'd take a swing at it. I'm like, 5% interest rate is where we had it at. 2021 is, I think it was 2021. So that was a purchase, and then that other one we bought for 100. So total on that street was $330,000. Here's where everything starts. We put tenants in both. So I put a tattoo shop in the chiropractor's office because it was already it had a bunch of these rooms and it worked out well.
It worked out good, yeah.
Yeah. So
Like you rented to a tattoo business?
To a tattoo business, yeah.
And how did you market for that?
Facebook.
Okay.
Yeah, at the time it was Facebook, and then it was an agent that I was in school with that he was just starting out. So we were just 2 kids figuring everything out. And he put it on Facebook and got a tattoo operator.
Okay.
And that was at $2,000 a month. And that worked out really well because that was triple net. And then
that is really nice. Then, yeah.
But the killer was the big building. We ended up getting an event center that was $6,000 a month, triple net, on a $200 and some $1,000 building. So the cash flow was nuts, right? And we were making $4,500, $5,000 easy off of that, and something off the other. Well, they reappraised a year later. And, we go from that 330 we bought plus the 20% down we put in, or minus, I should say. But they appraised at $1.2 million. And so we look at this appraisal and we're just blown, right? So the bank's like, well, we won't give you a cash out. You're young. It's a single tenant building for each. We don't really want to. You give you this kind of money and you go run wild. So we'll give you a line of credit. That opened the floodgates. Then I had capital. And from then, that's where all the rental side started building, right? I figured that I didn't really want to be in flips. I knew that rentals were kind of the direction I wanted to go in. And so that line of credit ended up being right around $650,000 around that time. And so then I was calling sellers, hey, I got cash, nonstop, and it worked out really well. I actually bought most of my deals from the MLS straight. And
you want to talk about some of them specifically?
Yeah.
Is that cool?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let me pull up the MLS. You guys kill the silence with something here.
Sure. Well, so you start buying deals off of MLS, and you're calling sellers. So you're calling the seller's agent, or you're going direct to the seller and saying, "I see you got something online."
Seller's agent.
Okay.
Yeah. So this was where my dad being a broker, I had MLS access, and that was the biggest blessing because I could just use those logins and just scour MLS all day long. I mean, quite literally all day long. I have one that you should really take a look at. It's on West 7th area of St. Paul.
An active listing right now?
No. We had bought that, one of those scenarios where it called quickly and you see what you paid for it versus, what it's worth today.
Single family or multi?
Single. If you just want to hit.
And what's the house number?
383. If you take a peek.
So this is something you bought back in the day.
Ozzy, you have access to $650,000 and you're like 22 years old, 23 years old. Mm-hmm. Is that what the deal is?
Yeah. Well, at first they restricted it. So they said 450 is what we'll give you.
Okay.
And as they started seeing like the
you're actually doing it successful.
Yeah. Then they gave the full limit. So this is actually a good example, right? Because
can you make that picture bigger?
Yeah. And you know what? We'll go Google Street View first. So this is one of the first deals you buy when you have this line of credit and you decide I'm going to get into rentals.
This isn't one of the first ones, no, but this is one of those examples that work well to prove a point. There's a lot of wholesalers and investors, and anybody that's watching the show should really listen to this next portion that I'm going to say. The MLS is a great tool to make money. It does not necessarily have to be off market. There are, and I won't name names, but there's tons of people in our circle, especially at that meetup, that will tell you that you cannot do it. The MLS is shitty. It's already listed.
Yeah. Most of them would say that.
We'll tell you that.
And yeah.
But because of that, there's no investors really actively competing with you, right? And so if you go in and you just send a bunch of offers, you'll build equity quick. And if you're in this game long term and you can wait, sure. I mean, appraisals will come. Even if the MLS shows you just purchased it, the appraisals will come. It's a little harder. You got to put a little elbow grease into it, but
yeah, and you might have to wait like a year.
You might have to wait a year
because commercial and residential for most people, by the way, is different. Residential is going to be off of comps, and if you don't do any remodel, even if an appraisal comes, most residential lenders won't give you extra money for a year. Commercial can be a little different.
Sure.
They look at the revenue, the fact that you turned it from a 0 to a $6,000 a month. That revenue is what drove that value
for sure.
Not the structure. The structure didn't matter.
No,
it was this property brings in a gross of 6, a net of X, and X drives the value.
Right. So this property right here, we're under the impression that this is probably worth a little north of 400. It's a massive home. So total finished square feet shows 2,600. It's actually closer to 4,000.
So that was a misprint on the MLS, or you added square footage?
And so
both.
For the audio-only listeners, a couple of things I want to point out. He closed at 170, it says here, and it was listed at 150, so I'm guessing you built in some things. I'd like to hear about that.
So this is actually an interesting one because when we toured it, we were looking at it and saying, like, this, and this is where that, it's a little bit of a dance. You don't know who's listing it. And if you don't know the agent, some agents are notorious for doing what, right? They go in under listing. And some will just price them where they're at, right?
It's really big, by the way.
Huge.
It goes back.
Yep. And so, I mean, massive, massive home. This was actually the upstairs unit where it looked like it was a duplex at one point, but not anymore. But original woodwork. I mean, you got some good charm to it. The old owner actually borrowed a bunch of money, raised the foundation, put that block, and got 9-foot ceilings in the basement.
Oh, really?
Right. So I put egress windows. So, I mean, the thing was, this was a gem. And so when it got listed, I was hawking the MLS every day, every second. It gets listed, and I call the agent right away. And he's like, listen, buddy, you got 22 showings today. Okay. So my phrase is like, what's the get it done price? Like, I don't know if there is one. Well, call your seller and find out. And so the seller comes and says, well, if we get 20 grand over list, we'll give it to him. And so they call me and I'd say, done, all day, cancel the showings. And we go in under contract. And we did. And so
it's important that you move quick, and it's important that you were decisive. And if you say 19, you probably don't get it.
Yeah.
They just let it, right? I mean, you read the room, Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, you have to know what scenario you're in.
You got to forget about the list price too.
Because it wasn't a real price anyway. If it was going to go for at least 20 over and maybe more.
Probably more.
Yeah.
They could have listed.
But you also probably didn't do inspections, right? I'm guessing
Nothing.
I'm guessing it was like, I'm buying this no matter what, right? And that matters somewhat too. That's worth something, especially if they know it would not pass inspections well.
Correct.
It's so funny that they would list it at 150. What a dumb list price.
It's a dumb list price.
Why not list it at 200?
Mm-hmm.
So they would have gotten 200 for it for sure.
At that time, when did we buy it? 2023? I mean, we're still, COVID?
We're in the same market right now for a West 7th duplex as we are in 2023.
Wait, this is
single family.
It's single family.
Yeah.
So I got a question for you, Ozzy. So you see how the windows are all kind of aggregated on the first 2/3 of the building, the other third?
Yeah.
My hunch is that other third used to be porches that they covered off and built up. Is that correct or not?
More than likely. So that whole right side is staircases going up and down.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, and so I mean, you can see how it's a hodgepodge job where
they
just added and added and added.
So funny. This is the 1800s, right? Here's the
So-
1900s.
So what do you
20s.
rent this for today? And is it just like one family or
It's one
this-
family on Section 8 today, and they are close to about $3,000, $50 shy of that.
Okay. And is it how many bedrooms is it?
5
Okay.
5 bed, 3 bath.
Okay.
So I don't know what it's showing here, and so on.
It was a 4.2 when you bought it. Is there still no garage?
No garage. No garage. That
All right.
was one that like an ADU play down the line. If we get bored, that might be the direction we go and build. And St. Paul's being very lenient with ADUs right now. So
But don't you have to occupy still? To rent an ADU out in St. Paul?
you can do that.
You get 2 rental licenses, one for the house, one for the ADU?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah. So if you go look at they dropped have you heard of the 1 to 4 unit study? Mm-mm. So if you Google 1 to 4 unit study, all that will come up, and that all just passed not too long ago.
Nice.
What they did was basically, this was the best piece of, I guess, legislation, if you want to call it, where, you see some things for the landlords now, right? And so higher density, lower restrictions. So things like as simple as setback requirements where you might not have, well, they reduced by a lot. And so on a vacant lot, you could put 5 units on one residential lot.
Oh, this must have been where they changed that. LaFond House had an issue because of the amount of was it? I forget if it was the amount of parking spots or the amount of like I don't even remember exactly. Oh, I know. It required a garage. Code required a garage prior to that, and then after, in the last couple of years, they changed. You no longer need a garage.
Yep.
For code.
They did really well with this, and I think St. Paul has got such a bad rap with investors about inspections and yada yada. But if you ask me, I'd be in St. Paul over Minneapolis any day of the week. What they're doing is phenomenal, and especially with this specific piece, you have quite a bit. So reduce restrictions on ADUs and allow more than one. This is the kicker right here.
Where are you reading this right now?
Under scope. All the way at the bottom.
Yeah.
So allow more than one residential building per lot. Mm-hmm. So back in the day, you go and you have a lot, especially like these quarter acres or these 0.15s or whatever you're buying. You're putting up one house and it's going to be tiny with setbacks and you got to get creative. But now they're just like cram, build, whatever you want to do. And so obviously there's still, some things you have to follow, but that picture is actually some great examples. So what could be built under this proposal. So throw a second one. Sometimes you can throw more than one. This one says 2 duplexes. So if you have a duplex, you can shove another one behind it. And you already own the lot, right? So you can get creative with your bank, especially with building finance, because what's the lot worth, right? These are some multiple single families. That's also a very interesting way. And you just stagger them where, sometimes now before the door would have to face the street, the main street. And now they're, you can build them like row homes or however the case may be.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I wonder, so what I envision is people doing things like either prefab or construction where they basically build a foundation, which happens to be the garage, with a walkway on the side of it, right? Like a covered, entrance or whatever that goes upside, and then above it becomes some form of a container home or already pre-built home that you can slap on the top of it. That's either 1 or 2 stories up, right? So basically, the whole tuck under garage, almost townhome style, but they don't necessarily have to be touching, right? You're not necessarily shared walls. And that's an idea. That's probably like the cool way to do that. And if over in the Railroad Island area, there's some cool houses that are like that, new construction, very trendy looking stuff.
All the metal and like the prefab metal. And
yep, exactly.
I asked the city at the time when this first came out, but everything was still so new. This was new, and we were looking at bringing in boxables. And throwing those up because why not? We'll come in, pour a slab, and get the connections, and let's just be done. But we couldn't get a precise answer from the city on whether or not they would do that because boxable in general at the time wasn't ready, and I think they still aren't really.
Yeah, are they delivering units?
I don't know if they're delivering units.
That's the company that was gonna they ship you an ADU basically.
Yeah, basically.
You just pop open the walls like this. It's supposed to be like a couple hours to install it. It's like
But they haven't quite delivered?
Right now, I think they've got, illusions like they're going to be the Uber of houses, right? And so they're raising tons and tons and tons of money, but they're not delivering a product, right?
Yeah.
I think, I guess I haven't looked for a while, but last time I looked there, you can't buy anything from them.
No.
But they've got really cool videos.
You can order, you can invest, you can give them some money.
You can invest. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Cool. So we'll have to link to this, on the show. Oh, look, they've got a facility.
Oh, I remember this. The casita, yeah.
It's a great concept, and I think it will work. It's just, are they actually ever going to be able to pull it off the ground?
Yeah. I mean, at some point, things will have to happen if construction costs keep going the way they're going, and affordability. So one of the things that you always hear is that there's a housing shortage, and there's a housing shortage. I don't think there's a housing shortage. I think what people really mean is there's an affordable housing shortage, and then define affordable, right? In what market. And Minneapolis and just in general, Minnesota, we're still blessed where, not that this is how you should buy, but the 1% rule is still available everywhere.
It's more available now than it was a few years ago.
Yeah. I mean, you can go get North Minneapolis all day long under 200, and you can rent it for $2,000 all day. I mean, you don't even have to be that strategic. They're listed on the MLS everywhere. If you look at, California, if you look at Phoenix, if you look at all these other, I have a friend that moved to Dallas to do this, and, even the 1% rule doesn't exist. And so they're heavy on ADUs right now, more than we are. And as our home prices keep skyrocketing, I think we're going to start leaning to more creative things like this.
I work with some buyers in Washington State, and same thing. Washington State ADUs are pretty big now. And one word of caution with ADUs is make sure you understand what you're building, and make sure, and to the extent you can, make sure it's financeable for the next person. Because you can, if you build them wrong or whatever, you can end up with problems,
For sure.
Yeah. Let's hear about some other deals. So you start doing this, and maybe we'll kind of you have some fun ones. Are there any other ones that really stand out in this time period that you're any big hits that you kind of, or ones where you got really, you got a sweet deal because it was weird, you connected with someone and you stole it from a big wholesaler or anything like that you can think of?
Yeah, there was one, but it wasn't, it was more recent than anything. It didn't really help to the building of this, but yeah.
Okay, well, let's hear about that one, because good stories are good stories, right?
Yeah, there was this one is definitely not one I would name names, but there's a guy that was going around in the off-market chats that was not really doing good business, right? Okay.
A wholesaler?
A wholesaler.
Well, there's a lot of those, so you don't have to name names, because I couldn't even guess when you say that.
He was a kid too, and generally, at least from my perspective, I love working with other young people in this business. Especially, you never know, creativity is so high when you're younger, and you have to be. We're not as financeable, we're not as established, and so you get some great ideas from people your age. Well, this guy was a master at doing one thing. He would find deals that had so much room in them. It was wholesale deals that have $300,000 in them.
Wow.
It was insanity. He doesn't get a lot of them.
And he wasn't doing good business?
No.
Oh, wow.
So his thing was, he worked with another wholesaler who's very reputable out here, and a good friend of mine, actually. And he kind of burned him because he didn't have the earnest money to go get this deal. And so he asked this wholesaler, well, would you JV with me? But you got to put up the earnest money. That deal fell through, and then... Because
of the dispo, or because of how did it fall through?
I'm not sure on that specific deal why it fell through, but I know it did. Okay. And the gentleman called me, the wholesaler that I work with, not the younger guy, and he's like, "Hey, do you know this guy?" I'm like, "I've seen him around, but nothing really." But he's, he took that earnest money, and he's calling him, "Can I get that back? You got it back, so you got to get that back to me." And he's just not answering the phone. And in this business, if you're gonna rip somebody off, which you shouldn't do, you definitely shouldn't do it for $2,000 in earnest money. Right?
That's true.
Yeah,
very true.
So, but being young and dumb, he's going through it, and then he did it to somebody else. Well, and finally he gets a deal, and these wholesalers call me and they're like, well, they know us, so we need you to kind of, you
need to go in.
You need to go in and go. You should go and screw with him a little bit. So he had a deal in West St. Paul, right by that Cesar Chavez mess, which property values there for St. Paul are pretty solid. Beautiful home, ended up appraising a little over 300 grand. But he had it for 60. Okay. And it virtually needed no work. It was a junk out. Everything was original. The gentleman that owned the home, took very good care of it. He borrowed money on credit cards, like rebuilt pretty much all of it. Gorgeous home. Well, his wife dies, and now this guy has dementia. You come later find out that this wholesaler is taking advantage of that. So he does like a napkin deal with a gentleman that has dementia, is screwing with him in all possible ways. So I'm thinking, and we get really lucky on how that ended up playing out. How do I get this? Well, the wholesaler sends it to me. The kid.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I think at the time he wanted like $180. I'm like, okay. And I tell all the new wholesalers that I have rules when you work with me, right? With other people, they might not care. But if you're going to stack anything more than 30, I'm not saying I won't pay it, but I say I need to know. I don't want to be at the closing table and find out that there was that much room. And the only reason why I do it is because sometimes I can still make the deal work, but 10 grand might make the whole difference on your side if you're going to flip it or you want to get a little bit off of the burr. And if we're being stingy on 10 grand and you've made 150 grand, you're going to have to move the needle a bit, right?
Yeah.
And you don't want that sticker shock when you're sitting at closing and you're like, holy shit, this guy just stacked 6 figures, And he's like, well, I'm making more than 30 grand. I'm like, yeah, okay. Like, I won't tell you how much. So I ended up driving by the property and there's this big sign that says, anybody that needs anything to do with this property, call this number. So, okay, because I was going to talk to that seller directly. So I call the number and a lady picks up and she's mad. It's like, who are you? And XYZ. Later, I find out she's the niece. She ended up finding out that this guy was her uncle's being taken advantage of. She's a realtor out in Wisconsin that sells higher end like luxury cabins. So she said, this is not my forte. But I kept it honest. I told her, listen, this guy's going to do this. I mean, he's shopping it around, and he's locked this PA at 60 grand and yada, yada. Well, the PA expired.
And it never meant anything in the first place, because if you have dementia, you can't sign
do
something.
That. Yeah.
Well, and so for the record, if it's worth 300 finished, that's actually no longer a good spread, because 120,000 isn't enough after you put in remodel and stuff like that. $100,000 spread, for example, is usually not enough nowadays to make any money. It's fine if you're going to live in it or something else, but it's not a good enough spread to flip. It might be even for a burr where you don't get all your money back, but you're pretty SOL on a flip if you only have $100,000 spread, right?
Well, I mean, that goes back to what I was telling you, is that the property was turnkey.
Yeah.
It was perfect.
If you don't have to do much.
Then there was nothing. We changed some smoke detectors and some locks. I mean, even the paint was...
even the paint was good?
It was fantastic. The hardwood was refinished. He had just installed a brand new kitchen a year before. I mean, the home was...
Okay, so it didn't need... It wasn't even $40,000 and it needed...
It wasn't even 10.
Yeah,
it was quite literally nothing. We had some stuff that we did for, gearing to sell just in case with the FHA, as far as like handrails and all that fun stuff. But I mean, really nothing.
Okay.
But the lady said, okay, I'll meet you, in a couple of days. Let's meet on the property and talk. And the long story short of it was she just appreciated the honesty, and that there's a lot of like slimy business that happens when you're direct to seller, right? The bigger guys, Homestead Road and all these guys, they get big because they do straight business, right? And they're transparent. And generally, if you go and see what Homestead Road would give somebody versus Chris Lindahl and all these guys, it's usually within a certain percentage.
Yeah.
You don't get these guys that are wildly taking advantage of somebody. It's just, hey, we're trying to make some money. This is kind of what we want to make. This is the condition of your home, and this is what it's worth. And it's math.
Yeah.
This guy signing a $60K napkin deal with a guy that has dementia is not good business by a long shot.
Yeah.
Dude, I had one where like a past client of mine was a therapist. Okay. I forgot the guy's name. I worked with him, one-off deal. I helped him maybe buy and sell a duplex or something. And then I just kind of forgot about him, and he went off into the, years went by, and then he hit me up and he wanted me to help him buy a single family house in Bloomington. And he already had made an agreement with this guy for $80,000. And I'm like, huh, okay. And I went and checked it out. And like, it was a tiny little home and it needed a lot of work, but 80,000 just kind of still felt like
low.
It felt really low. Like I'm thinking like, gosh, it's probably worth 150, you know? And so I maybe got as far as like sending him representation paperwork. And I think I was talking to my broker about it. And then I got the phone call, same thing as you. And this guy, it was one of his old patients. All effed up in the head.
Oh,
and
no. That's got to be illegal.
Oh,
Has to be.
in so many different ways. And it was his sister that called me. Same phone call, right? Like what's going on? And I was like, yeah, I don't know a lot about the situation. It's felt kind of weird. I haven't sent contracts to anyone. But she was fuming because and then she told me, and I'm like, oh, that makes total sense. So yeah, man, there's some, and this guy wasn't a wholesaler whatsoever. He was just like
Dumb
a
luck.
shitty person who ran into, thought he saw dollar signs because this guy was all screwy.
Yeah.
We got 18 saved and sober, right?
Yeah.
To
So
sell a
you
house.
meet with I forget what you said the relation was, but the female realtor from Wisconsin.
Yeah.
What happens here?
Well, long story short, she said, listen, I appreciate your honesty and everything. I know I'm a realtor. I can go and dig and figure out what this is worth. But because you kept it honest and you know, at that point, I just said, it's not even about me, right? Going into this was, don't let this kid have it because he stole all those EMs, right?
Yeah.
So whether I get it or not, I just didn't want him to have it for what he did to these buddies of mine that, you know. So I was like, you know what? Let's just be as transparent as possible. I told her, you know what your house is worth. If you don't know, I'll tell you. I mean, and so she said, listen, 60 is what he owes on it. And that's where this guy probably talked to the guy and maybe did some searching and found out what he owed and gave him exactly that. She said, I'd like to be able to put him in a nursing home and cover that cost and whatnot. And I said, well, what do you need? She said, well, I'd like to give him 20 grand. And I'd like to make $8,000 because we're going to go through my brokerage. So we'll be at $88,000. Does that sound fair to you? I said, sure. I mean, she knows what it's worth. If she was told, everything was.
Yeah.
But she was doing it out of like, you know what? And she told me, she said, I sell cushy cabins. I'll never forget that phrase. Out in Wisconsin. She said, I don't really care about this. So, you know, we ended up giving the guy, we paid off the mortgage and gave him 20 grand for, you know, going to a nursing home. And then, you know, she was paid $8,000 as well. And so at 88,000, let's call it for simple math, after everything all said and done, we're at 100. And appraisal at 300, you know, generally I don't want to suck all the cash if I'm going to keep it as a rental. And I decided I'm going to keep it. So I pulled 200, right? So I pulled 200 grand. And, you know, I got that initial 100 off of that line of credit.
Yeah.
And I walked with right around that $100,000 mark to keep it as a rental.
Nice.
Yeah.
And people say there aren't any deals right now. I actually hear that. Like, you know, they're harder to find. I mean, I don't think you find that every day.
No.
And you know, but again, if you're out there and you're active, people know, hey, Ozzy will close. Ozzy will be honest, right? Those are all more important than people think.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I found a deal at the zoo last weekend. My buddy was with his friend, and his grandma had just passed away. And we're just all at the zoo together. And I met him on Monday, and I mean, hopefully I'm going to take it down to like single family home in Columbia Heights. But point being, if you just exist in life and people know that you want to buy real estate, and you talk to enough people about it, the deals come pretty constantly, I would say.
Yeah, there's plenty of deals. It's just, you know, investors are now looking to get a little bit more competitive. And so the next guy is always willing to make a little bit less than you are. But there's flips, right? There's you know, burrs, there's things that can get things done. My whole philosophy was just buy, right? Because if anything, age being, you know, the biggest driver of this, the way my investment strategy might go in my head doesn't work for somebody that might be in their 40s. The thought process is if it doesn't cash flow and it's just terrible and there's nothing to it, but it doesn't suck cash out of your pocket, if you hold it for 20 years, you got some money, right? Just don't float it every month. So the whole idea of cash flow is never a thing that, you know, you hear it all the time, and, you know, the reality, you guys know how it goes. There's really never any.
Maybe not immediately, but it's definitely real.
Over
time.
time. But initially, yeah, you're right. Especially in the current market with insurance and mortgage costs and everything else, like cash flow is pretty tough. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, and then if you net $500, is it cash flow?
Sure. Because I know what you're saying. Because
you're just borrowing it at that point. The roof will need replacing. How long are you going to keep it? The furnace, all those big ticket items, you're going to pay it if you really put pen to paper. You just don't feel it over a course of a year or two.
Well, we've talked about this before, Ozzy, and you're 100% right, except if you sell it before that stuff needs to get done.
For sure.
And the keyword there being need or even should be done, right?
Yeah.
And that's something we talk about is I always say, like, if a roof is within 7 to 8 years of needing replacing, you sell that house, the buyer might be like, I don't love the roof, but they're not going to make you replace it. And you're not going to have to pay the 20 grand, and that becomes your profit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for me being all the construction guys in-house, I'd rather just do the roof, right?
Because well, if you can do it like cheap,
if you can do it cheaper,
Yep.
And then the price points that I was buying all these at, it's like, I don't really want to sell it today, right? Let's pay down the loan. So I've got quite a bit of units, but they were all acquired from, I think the first rental was 2023, right? March or May, one of the two, in 2023, when, like, aside from those commercial buildings that sure are rentals but don't fit, the regular model that I'm doing now, the single family stuff came in 23. And so from then to here, and you build all these, you didn't pay anything down yet, right?
Sure. 3 years.
It's 3 years. And so, holding those a little bit more longer term is probably the way I'd want to go. But I did stop buying single families recently and duplexes and all that shenanigans. But I think that's the natural progression as you try to find a bigger asset class to get into.
So how did you? So we'll cut it. We can bleep it. Whatever. How many units are we at right now?
83.
Okay. Do you want me to cut it? Because I will.
Nah.
No.
You're
Okay.
good.
In how many
so
years?
you got
3 years?
83 in 3 years, basically.
Yeah.
So what? That you got to have a team to do that.
Me, myself, and I. Me and the construction guys. And
The construction guys, right? Yeah. And who rents them? Though? You don't have time to rent them and buy them, do you? Like that alone is a lot of work. Renting 83 units out as you're also trying to buy units and make offers.
Yeah.
Or we should ask this. What's the breakdown of the 83? Because did you buy like a 40-unit building in there?
I bought a 20-unit building recently.
Okay.
So that kind of put things, into gear. I was actually...
Well, I think you were in gear before you bought the 20 unit. Myself, I would say you're in gear.
Yeah, I mean, kind of. So if you look at the portfolio, you see a lot of stuff that you bought quickly, and volume is there per doors. And this is actually something that I'd really like to say on this show for anybody that's watching that is going to focus on door count. That's new. I would say focus on quality doors, right? And if anything teaches you this, it's that 20 units or 30 units in my portfolio really makes all the money that funds everything else that these might lose. But if you just have those initial 40, and you go and you look great at these meetings, and you puff your chest out that you have X amount of doors, but those doors are just dragging you down on the good ones. So we know duplexes got a little bit more leeway.
Yeah.
By a single family that you might have an equity play in, I have one that I lose $200 or $300 a month on out in Spring Lake Park, but it's sitting on over half an acre, and I'm willing to hold it. It's a development play down the line. And
you it sounds like I'm sure you bought it with some equity, right?
Yeah. There's equity. Yeah. But then the rents are not that much different in Spring Lake Park than they are in North Minneapolis. Like you'd think they would be, but especially primarily what I'm doing is Section 8.
Spring Lake Park isn't that nice, right?
It's expensive.
Really?
Oh yeah. I mean,
maybe I'm thinking of something else.
Spring Lake Park is right. It's
South Metro, right?
Yeah, no, it's closer to Andover and stuff like that, right?
You're in between. So Fridley.
Yeah.
Then you got Spring Lake Park, and then Blaine, I believe.
Was it Blaine? Okay.
Yeah, you're right in that area.
I was thinking of something different.
Yeah.
There's Spring Park that's out in Minnetonka. That's different.
Okay.
But
okay, so you have a 20 unit. What's the rest of the breakdown of the 83?
Primarily single family duplexes.
Okay. But to buy that many in 3 years, to
it's just a lot of work.
Look through all the deals, close on them, finance all of them, and they do all the construction. Mm-hmm. Just tell us a little bit about that. That's pretty phenomenal.
I came in at the right time, I would say. There was a couple things that really worked in my favor. North Minneapolis experienced, and St. Paul, they experienced kind of a price shock in isolated areas. what happened was a big hedge fund out of New York lost their rental licenses.
Yeah.
And they
I remember
ended
that.
So they went and dumped. So you got like agents like Mike Olson, and they used 3 agents really that I got. Corey McCracken. That's the one. So
I know Corey. I knew him before he was big.
Yeah. So they got all these listings, right? And what they did was they boarded up these homes. Well, first they got everybody out. They boarded up these homes, and they put them up for sale on the MLS. Pretty much at the same time. I mean, they did waves, but when you got 50 single families that are all within 2 miles, especially in North Minneapolis, they're 2 miles apart on a radius, and they're all boarded, and this whole area just looks like downtown Detroit or whatever the case may be. And then they go listed on the MLS, and they post it for an outrageous number, and then they're doing $50K price cuts on a $200,000 list price. Like, it's insanity. And so they sit, and then finally, I come in, and a lot of people are just lazy, right? You figure in this business, like, you make a lot of money off of people's laziness. There was one time, again, like, I bought something that was supposed to be a 4-bedroom duplex, 2 each. Well, the agent didn't go into the upstairs unit, or I guess he didn't even there was no photos of the inside. Well, it turns out it's an 8-bedroom duplex. Does that change your math?
Yeah, that's a lot. Yeah,
Yeah.
it sure does.
Yeah. But it wouldn't sell because at a 4-bedroom, nobody wants it, right? So this is the same scenario where...
Do you go in and do you actually walk a lot of these, or do you just buy
everyone?
So they do let you in?
Yeah. So most of them, the doors are unlocked, or the doors are you can get in from the keypad. Okay. But they board the windows, right? Okay. And they board the side doors and the backs and patios and whatnot.
So how many did you scoop up from this one investor that?
I would say right around 20-ish.
Okay.
Yeah. But that was rapid because the inventory was readily available. But then more than that, they lost their rental licenses, not on a case-by-case basis. It wasn't like every one of these properties were, pieces of, garbage.
They lost them all at once.
All at once.
So some were decent places.
I bought all the carpet and paints. That's it. They had some fires. They had some stuff that was just terrible. So many of them, they're moving ready. Like, you spend a day and just clean it up a little bit, and they're moving ready. They put new kitchens recently. They put new floors recently. A lot of them, we didn't even change the carpet. We looked at it, and I'm going to shampoo it. It's fine, right?
Yeah.
And so right around that time, the second thing that, it's good and bad, I got involved with a sober home company. And the sober home company was the one that, I'm not sure if you're familiar, but they got busted for all the fraud and out in St. Paul.
I don't know the name, but we talked about this before. This was the company that was assigning the people to the sober homes. That's what you're talking about?
No, this is the actual sober homes.
Okay, the actual company.
The actual company.
It's on the tip of my tongue with Ryan Luthe's episode. What is it called?
Evergreen Recovery.
Okay.
Oh, we were talking about a different company.
Okay.
So there were multiple fraud cases then?
They were, but she was the biggest by a long shot. I mean...
So tell us about the fraud. What was going on?
But didn't she have so many that she was also placing people in other ones because she didn't have...
Well, her scam was, essentially offering free housing, which you're not allowed to offer any incentives to somebody that's coming for treatment. That's the real rule you broke.
Okay.
But then they got busted over the fact that, well, you got these guys saying that they're coming to treatment 6 times a week, and they're not. And they got busted based off of, they billed the state for...
6 times a week, they went once or zero. And they got free housing for saying they went 6 times. Is that what the deal was? Okay.
So they just signed, I'm a patient. And somebody was actually committing a double homicide out in St. Paul at the same time, Evergreen was claiming that they were in treatment. So they're receiving money, but the guys across town doing,
Yeah.
And that's what, toppled. And shout out to AJ Legault. He's the reporter that caught all of this and put together a great
AJ
piece.
Legault?
AJ Legault.
Who's he with?
Care 11, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there are 2 scams, and I'm sorry, I ran out of disk space. That's why we're not looking at anything.
Sure.
So there was New Way.
Yep.
That was the one I think we talked about.
They agreed to pay $18 million to settle, and it was Medicaid fraud. Mm-hmm. And then the Evergreen scam was a $30 million fraud.
That's the big boy.
Involving falsified. So they're similar frauds. Falsified billing.
Same thing, yeah. Same.
I mean,
Interesting. It's crazy.
that's how you get paid for stuff you don't do. That's a good way. I mean, that's a good way to make profit, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we should try that. So how did you get involved with them?
They were leasing one of my neighbor's homes, or a neighbor of a property that I was remodeling, and it's like, yeah, you should work with them. They're better than Section 8. Like, they pay a little bit better, and he said, to be fair, I just started working with them. But they pay on time, and they don't have inspections. So in Section 8, we're going through an inspection and a lease up and all that fun stuff. But to answer your question of how did you do it so rapidly, they were buying these things like Skittles. Like, I'd get a home, there was a time where I would go out with their one of their managers, and I'd go on the MLS.
With Evergreen's manager?
One of Evergreen's managers. And I would put together a list of, they'd say we'd need 5 bedrooms here, 3 bedrooms there, whatever the case may be. And so they knew that they were going to get an influx of new patients. I don't know how. I think it was a Native American targeted like assistance thing at the time. So don't quote me on this, but a reservation or something was sending, a sizable amount of clients, right?
Okay.
So they knew that they were getting those heads in the door. And so they called and said, we need houses and we need them quick. Okay. Well, I go on the MLS and it's like, we're still in that time where there's just, what that company that lost their rental license, you're an agent, you know what that does to the comps, right? Like, they're all selling for 90 grand and 100 grand. Well, now what, right? Everything in that area is destroyed for the time being. Well, so I go and I schedule, 15 or 20 showings for everything in that area, right? That fits the criteria of what they're looking for. And we go out with a clipboard, me and this manager, and she's like, yes, no, like that. And the ones that are yeses, I'd call the agents. I'll take this, I'll take that, I'll take that. And so then I had to, kind of leverage that line with hard money. And that helped me buy way more than the $600,000 at a time.
Of course.
Yeah.
Because you could probably they probably wanted 10% down on the purchase price, or were you getting them at nothing? Because you did use the line of
different at
credit.
the time. Yeah, at the time there was a guy that's no longer in the state but doing it. But Hattie from Renovo she used to work with him. They were like a percentage of ARV. So theoretically, you can go in with 0.
Okay.
Right. Just depending on where they feel like the value will land.
Yep.
And so you were using
but you
that
had a line
product
of
for a
credit.
lot of these?
So
some,
you
yeah.
had a line of credit, so you're putting some money into some of them. Then obviously, it sounds like anyway. Yeah.
But the refinances were happening so quickly. So the other thing, my bank had no seasonality, right? They never cared about that. That's where the real money's made, right?
That's difficult to find banks that will do that, and they have to trust you.
They have to trust you. They're smaller banks, so a lot of the bigger ones underwrite a lot more thorough. But they're also not the cheapest. So I still have some debt at 8.5 today, right?
But it doesn't even matter, right?
No.
It's just a number.
Yeah, at the price points we picked them up, it is what it is.
Well, that's
And then the other thing is everything kind of worked in synergy for so long, for about a couple of years where we just cycled through these.
Yeah.
Bittersweet though, right? We were able to pick up so many units doing it like that because we had a partner that was just taking these homes.
You didn't have to worry about renting it. So you weren't showing. I'm sitting here thinking, how do you clean this place up, go buy another one, and then when it's done, have the time at that same time when it needs it to go find a tenant. But you already had you didn't have to go find the tenant. So that's one thing that helped.
It did.
And then you also were able to buy, it sounds like, properties that didn't need much. That also helps. It's still a lot of work, though.
It is, yeah.
I mean, just even coordinating paint and carpet for that many properties while you're also trying to buy them.
Yeah. You isolate yourself.
What does the team look like? How many employees do you have?
Today, 13. So 13 between full-time and part. And they are wonderful. So without them, between them and then, I'm still self-managing at these 83. Between
Do you use Shook?
I don't. I just met him. I just met him. But
Come on, dog.
Yeah.
We're connecting. He's a very good guy. Got a lot of fun stuff that he's working on, and they're developing, from what I see, at a rapid pace, integrating AI and
they'll basically build. I mean, especially since you'd be building big enough, they listen to me, so they would. If you want a feature, they'll get it in
for sure,
that kind of thing. Or
right now we're with Door Loop, and Door Loop has been pretty decent. That's where we started off at, but I think that after the conversation I had with
Miles,
that I told him my biggest thing is I don't want to move everybody over. He's like, well, we white glove service that.
They do.
Yeah.
They really do.
So-
You don't have to do anything.
If that's the case, we just solve
Their
the issue.
payments are quick. I'll tell you that. Funny. I actually despise door loop. And this is not a plug for Shook as much as I thought door loop was the worst one I ever used by far.
Really?
Yeah.
What didn't you like?
I didn't like, well, the reporting was a big part of it, but also the accounting work. This was also when it was newer. We used it. So I'll tell you, like roughly the year would have been around 2020, roughly
Gotcha.
around then.
So I probably started 2023.
Yeah, they probably fixed a lot of the problems because I was like, we need out of the software as soon as possible. It was one of our apartment buildings
Gotcha.
in Chattanooga. So it might have even been 2021, but it's somewhere in that time frame anyway. And it was awful. Just awful. I mean, the accounting, we couldn't get any report that we wanted. It was hard to even get a proper, like a report that showed your vacancy, your rent roll and delinquent didn't come on the same report. So you couldn't tell. You had to print them both, and then because I had to match up the person's name with the rent roll to figure out what unit they were in to figure out who was delinquent. It was just like the worst I'd ever. But anyway, I'm sure they fixed that by now.
Probably.
You couldn't use it.
Yeah. No, the reports now are great. I mean, just get them on your phone. It's pretty quick.
Yeah.
So this sober house company is no longer exists. So what do you do with all these? What happens, dude?
Oh yeah, you get screwed. So all that speed that we were going at, we had to pretty much take a pause for quite a bit of time.
Well, you lost all your people, right? When they lose their license, they pretty much all moved out right away, right?
No,
all
I
your
wish.
revenue?
They
They stayed, but the
became the
revenue
manager?
left, right?
there
Even
you go.
worse.
There you go.
Yeah, even worse.
Yeah. So you have all these addicts, and that's what they are, right?
Yeah,
and
sure.
And they're sitting in these buildings, and the addicts need support.
Yeah.
Support's gone. I'll give it to her. She did run an operation. I mean, just because the fraud was there doesn't mean the services weren't.
Yeah.
So they were still sending people out and making sure these people are fed, and there's toothpaste and there's cleaning supplies and whatever. Like they're taking care of them. They're just overbilling,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Overbilling is not my issue. I didn't know about it, right? Like
Yeah.
we're landlords. I'm renting to a company. I have no idea this overbilling is happening, and so we're just collecting security deposit and rent, and they were pretty decent about like damages. So like, if somebody comes and they were very harsh on the property, as you can imagine. Well, the other thing is that you would think a single family of a 3-bedroom would have 3 people in it, or 5,
No, 6
or
at
10.
least, right?
Oh, some of
10?
them were 20 and 18s.
Oh,
and
really?
It was like wherever they could fit a bunk bed, they did. And so it was like a bunk in this corner, and like, they have some employees there that really were against it. There was a lady, Bailey. She really hated that. She didn't like it, and that was one of the ladies that I was working with, and she hated that. And she didn't like it one bit. But cram, and that's what it looked like. And so you got, for example, an 8-bedroom duplex, and the rooms are big. Some of them are maybe twice the size of the room we're in, and you can visualize how many bunks are you fitting in that.
Oh yeah,
you're cramming. And so if you have 40 or 30 people, 2 bathrooms, I mean, like it turns into a nightmare quickly. Well, then they go one day and then the offices are closed and the FBI is there, and it's like, this is done. Well, they just go back to the homes that they were in and just wait. Well, you got how many people, hundreds of people sitting in properties.
And how many of them do you own right now when this is happening?
Of the sober homes?
Yeah.
I don't know off the top of my head, but it was probably...
More than a dozen?
Oh, yeah. It was bad.
More than 30?
No, it's probably right around that 20 mark.
Okay.
If we're counting units.
Okay, yeah.
Just because, rentable units, they took about 20. But that was essentially almost like 300 or 400 people. I mean, it was tough to get a head count. Plus, they let their friends in, and that becomes a thing. So it was a nightmare. Even today, I still have one property that's still condemned from that whole shenanigans. Like, I've been working for the last, I don't know how long. They got shut down August 1st, 2024.
And you weren't doing this for very long, man, because you got started in 2023. So how many months of even cash flow did you get out of this deal?
Not much. My whole thing was, after I gave them 3 or 4, the smart thing that I did was I set wild deposits. So some of these we got $25,000 in deposit. So I knew what they did to the other ones.
Yeah, so you're starting to go, okay.
Yeah.
The normal deposit doesn't work.
We were working, I had crews working 24/7 for like about a month. When I say 24/7, I split the crew and morning and night to keep because their demand was so high. I kid you not. I mean, they'd call me and they say, this property is down to the studs and they need it in a week. It's insanity. But I know there's a good paycheck at the end of it. So I'm like, okay,
Yeah,
what else
we'll
we
make
got
it
going
work.
on?
Yeah,
We'll
yeah.
make it work.
So do you just evict all these folks, or what did you do?
So my attorney tried a few times. So Dibble was actually the one, if you're familiar.
Okay.
He was the one trying to evict those, and I think there was a moratorium on that. Don't quote me on this, but it seemed like there was something with the city where it was like, well, we don't want, because between me and like one or two other landlords, we were really housing pretty much everybody of that sober home, and they had 900 clients.
Yeah.
So 3 people come to court, 3 landlords, and we're evicting 900 people in one shot.
Yeah.
And so they're like, well, slow it down, right? We don't want 900 people homeless again in 10 seconds.
Well, and neither do we, but bring the money.
Bring the money.
Because we're not doing anything wrong. We're providing housing, right?
Yeah. Well, it was the wild, wild west. I mean, the city was going to get involved, and then they never really did. They were supposed to take over some payments, keep it floating. But you got water, sewer, trash that we were upkeeping.
Yeah,
but
of course.
Electric and gas was all under the sober homes name, right? And so what happens when that gets cut off? And then there's just a whole bunch of wiring in a house and a lot of attics in it.
Yeah.
They're going to the scrapyard, dude.
Immediately. And so I would venture to say it repairs and lost rent probably total to a little over $1 million. Yeah. Over the course, just this last one that I finished was a little north of 150 in repairs.
Yeah.
You
probably paid less than $150 for the whole place when you got it, right?
I did.
Yeah.
They left me with a fire damaged home as well. It was a nightmare all the way through and through.
Interesting. And you're still standing, right?
Thank God.
Yeah. Congratulations, by the way, because it sounds like you had to go through some shit. And sometimes we have to eat shit in this business, right? And it sounds like you got your fair share. So someday when people think you're so rich and that you were so lucky,
not the case.
They're never going to know the story. Yeah.
No.
So this is a pretty big problem, obviously, right? Can you tell us some of the things you did to manage it? Because this is not easy, the things you're talking about.
Yeah.
Did you renegotiate with your banks? How did you manage the cash flow of all that?
I was making sure the bank got their money. By any cost possible, they got their money. Okay? But I didn't pay any
No
money.
negotiation at all?
Nothing.
Didn't even say, hey.
I didn't even bring this issue to them.
Okay.
Right? They knew, right? They saw the quarterly reports and they see a crazy vacancy rate that just came out of nowhere. They knew, and you communicate that with them. But I didn't borrow any money.
Okay.
What I was doing was one at a time. I said, let's go tour these and see which one needs the least amount of work. And let's turn that one quickly, right? Get that back on the rent roll. There are some that I know. Fire damage, if you start there, you're going to run out of cash really quickly, right?
Sure, yep.
So August 1st, I hear the news. August 2nd, I'm in these houses, right? And I take my team and we go. And we got lucky because a lot of times we just told them hey, sober home shut down. You know this? You got to go. Now,
some left, some didn't.
Left, some didn't, right? And, some of them you had to pay. Some of them you had to boot. Some of them you had to just wait till they leave the house and, board it up when they, you just sit there. And it was tedious, right? And in my thought process, and I'll still stand behind this, is that I'd rather pay the fine to the state or the court because if you're not going to let me evict them, and eviction process already sucks. I'm going to do what I have to do, right?
And it's such a great area.
And your lease wasn't with them.
Yeah.
Your lease was with the company. Business to business is treated different.
Yeah.
So,
well, that was another thing. When they opened the evictions, they were like, well, you can't do that. You have to serve a different way. And the judge was like, well, I've never seen this before. How would we do this? And it went back and forth. And you know how it goes. Evictions, if there's one little technicality in the state of Minnesota, you're if it's
starting
not
from
buttoned up,
scratch.
yeah, you're done.
And with the notice you have to give, I don't know if you have to re-give notice again, but I think you probably do.
All over. All over.
Just the most ridiculous thing.
So did you get fined at all?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Exactly.
Yeah. Again, this is one of those things with inspectors, with state, as an investor, if you're going to roll over every time somebody comes in, sticks his hand out for some money, you're going to go bankrupt pretty quick, right? You got to be able to say, I'm not doing that, right? And just be able to face those consequences. But we were able to turn a lot of those units pretty quickly. And then
so would you say it was even half or not quite half?
About. I think that's a fair assessment.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. There were definitely ones that were like, well, I know my rights. And those are the ones where you're like, all right, well, you got attorneys, and we waited and waited. And some of them we actually worked with the city, and we said, well, hey, this is just not habitable, right? There's no running water. This thing is broke. Like, they're like, well, fix it. I'm like, well, no, don't have the money for that.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to condemn it if you don't do that. Okay, cool. Yeah. And so then Minneapolis PD just comes in and kicks everybody out for you just because they'll post a notice and says uninhabitable, be out by this day.
Yeah.
And so that's how we did a few of them in Minneapolis and St. Paul.
Did any of the tenants come after you for, because in St. Paul, at least, you have to pay like some rehoming fee when they never, but the tenants knew they could have gotten you for like, it's different. I just had a client who went through this, but
it is interesting though, if you think about like how the government treats it versus like they don't want this to happen. They're willing to give tons and tons of money to these people before the fraud.
Yeah.
Yet after, when there's no extra fluff, it's just the true cost. The cheapest they could do, they could have housed all these people and had zero problems.
Oh, for sure.
They needed to come up with an emergency program to do it because technically it was different, but those payments could have been routed to you. It could have been all above board, and everybody wins at a much cheaper price.
Yeah, I mean, the simpler solution is just pay us to keep housing them until you rehouse them, right?
Right.
Because our rent rolls are a lot cheaper than what it would cost for you to go build like a warm space or a shelter or whatever the case may be, right? So, assign a specific targeted caseworker for this, and at least pay to keep the lights on, right? But they made their money. They actually turned it into a business. Boarding fees or Cat 2 fees. Some of them I'm paying like 10. City of Minneapolis charged me like $10,000 for boarding a unit. I said, we told you not to do it. I'm like, well, I have no choice. I just rewired the thing, and I caught them trying to steal it again the next day. We spent $60,000 to rewire this thing. It's a massive duplex.
Yeah.
I'm going to board it up. And you just have
They
to
charge you because you boarded your own property. Think about that too. Like, where's the legal right in that? Like, what do they stick as their legal justice that we can fine you for boarding up your own building?
Oh yeah.
Basically securing your own building.
It's nuts. That's the cities for you,
Yeah.
And how are you paying for
I think if you sued them on that one, you win. Sorry.
How do you pay for the $1 million in repairs?
I had some cash. I was doing some flips this whole time. I was doing pretty well on certain things. You got to think, all these burrs I was pulling out, anywhere from 30 to 80, a piece. That company went down. I got all their equity. I mean, granted, they bought these things for, a bag of Doritos back in the day, and they rented it for 15 years or 20 years. And now they lost their rental licenses onto bigger and better things. So when they're dumping, they're not exactly trying to get top dollar.
So not only are you getting your cash back when you burr, but you're making 30 to 80 in extra cash per?
Generally, yeah. I mean, so for example, if you bought this property, so there's a bunch I can show you on the MLS where we closed at like 120, right? But it appraised at 240, right? And so you do the rough math.
But what's the LTV on something like that?
75?
80.
You're getting 80.
I'm always getting 80, yeah.
Yeah.
So you borrowing what, 160 or 170 something on that? My math is.
But do you have to put money into it also, right?
Well, most of them are carpet and paint. What does that charge? Right?
Okay.
Like
With
$5,000.
his own staff too.
With
Right.
my own stuff.
Yeah.
But we're trying to be in and out for $5,000 or $10,000. Now this isn't like a blueprint that people can go and replicate today, because obviously that was situational, right? In that volume, in that specific scenario, but they still exist. You can still do them, just not as fast, right? You got to be willing to buy dumps, and you got to be willing to buy in dumpy areas. It's the lower class the asset is, the more money there is for you. If you go and buy in Blaine, you're not going to make anything on it. There really isn't any burr that you can do. Ford right now.
This is what I was saying. You buy in better neighborhoods. When you were saying why does Ford do it and I don't, is because you're buying in A neighborhoods, or at least B+ neighborhoods, right?
Well, tell me, where are some of your stuff? Like, what's the last few cities?
Basically all St. Paul, but Highland Park, Summit Hill, Cathedral Hill.
All right, so Edina. So Edina prices. I'm Frogtown.
They're all within 8 minutes of a Rolex shop.
There you go. That's the problem. Yeah. Yeah. No. Oh, the other thing with the BRRRR that you have to keep in mind is just because the equity's there doesn't mean the bank's going to give it to you, right? Like it still has. If you're going to keep it, it's got a cash flow or do debt service.
They're doing DSCR loans through commercial lending, right? Which is not the same as what other people hear on the DSCR loan that like the residential industry talks about.
Yeah,
it's different math.
So I mean, to put this into perspective, how much do you get for rent for a 3-bedroom out in Summit Hill, and then compare it to
$3,000.
Okay. And so I'm getting 23-ish. So then you look at that $700 difference. What's it costing you to buy that 3-bedroom? And then what is it costing me to buy that 3-bedroom? If that $700 is not there, then it's not worth it, right?
So if you're looking at cash flow, but
if you're looking at cash flow,
I mean, you guys are doing two totally different models. They actually both work,
They do.
but you're not going to see the cash flow is what he's saying. And for the record, for most people, 700 is a little bit more today's rate's a little bit more than $100,000. But at commercial rates with the lighter amortization, it's about $100,000 spread, meaning that's how much you'd have to
pay extra. And
yes,
yeah.
but you could pay exactly $100,000 more than Ozzy and make the numbers be exactly the same based on those rents. Anything more than 100,000 and the numbers won't be the same for cash flow.
But then I'd venture to guess that he's paying more than $100,000 over. Because what are you paying for a 3-bedroom out in Summit Hill, Highland Park?
The last one I paid $300 for.
But Adam's biggest problem is that his tenant's going to go buy a new property, and your biggest problem is the tenants cut the wires on your house. So
it's what you're willing to tolerate. Yeah,
exactly. In the mortgage business, they say to get new leads, like if you want to buy leads, everything has hair. What hair do you want to deal with? Bad credit, tough to do income, whatever. Right? People don't come to you to lead shops if they've got a good situation. Yeah.
Yeah, I think what you did was just kind of skip the grunt work because now I'm graduating out of it, right? And so. It's not a bad place to be. I definitely wouldn't go backwards, right? Because even if you look at like cash flow, again, it's all being dumped back into these deals. And especially when you get to a certain amount where you will have problems. 1 or 2 you might skate by for a while. But then if you talk...
If you get 80...
80, something's happening. There will be a furnace every month, And then, mind you, I bought them from an investment company, which is so much different than buying it from a homeowner. Investment company, that furnace filter was never changed. The furnace is on its last leg when you buy it. The roof was, shitty and old. And so I always say there's no such thing as cash flow in those deals. It's just deferred maintenance, right? That's what it is. And so you're making your money off of deferred maintenance. And how long you're going to defer it, and how you can have a roof that's 25 years old and still not leaking. Do you change it? No, you change it when it leaks.
Yeah.
Right? You have to really be willing to get that property all the way down before you go and bring it back up every single time to get every last dollar out of it.
What do you mean by bring? Oh, you mean do you mean you got to let the condition go as long as possible?
Oh, for sure. So your main thing, and to be very clear,
which is not a very fun way to landlord in general.
No,
it's hard
because you end up with some shit tenants.
You can. I'd say Section 8 has got a really bad rap attached to it, but it depends on how involved you are. Are you doing quarterly checks, or are you waiting for Section 8 to come? As long as you're treating it like a business, the biggest lie that was told was passive. And I don't know who started that word, but he needs to go to jail, right? There's nothing passive about this. If you treat it as passive, the tenants will too, and you'll passively lose your money, right? But if you're in there every 3 months, okay, the roof's old, boo-hoo, it didn't leak. That doesn't make you a slumlord. Yeah. There's no leaks, right?
Yeah.
Your job is safety and livability, right? Your job is not cosmetics, and this isn't something that you're going to stack, put your last name on and say, I'm proud to own this. These are money cash cows, right? Because you'll either sell out of them in 1031 when you're ready, or they just make you more lendable to a bank.
Which is what I think you do. This is where I was saying, if you sell out of your portfolio strategically, and you ride this stuff out to a point where it doesn't need to be done yet. Let's say it's but within a decade of needing a new roof and new windows and new everything, you sell out then, you're not going to take the hit for that.
No.
Someone else will take the hit 5 to 7 years later when it's right at the very end of its life. Right?
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, it depends on how long you're going to keep it, right? So if I'm going to keep it for the full 20, I'm going to do some roofs, right? It's just the reality of it. But as long as you're okay with the concept of your money's later, you don't get paid up front, right? your money's later. There will be money down the road, one way or another. I mean, you're paying the thing down. If there's you have the appreciation game at a much higher rate than I do. North Minneapolis isn't really appreciating like Highland Park is, right?
Over time,
percentage wise, it's done really well.
Yeah.
You're
Few
going to do
years.
great on that avenue because of your forced appreciation, especially.
Correct.
Yeah.
But natural appreciation, like market appreciation.
But historically, North Minneapolis has done the best in the metro. Although I'd say in the last 3 years or so, not at all.
Yes, and so that's the hard part is in a hot market, low-end areas jump up because they're still cheaper than anything else, but they also dive down when the market goes down, and they stay flat longer in bad markets.
Yeah.
So they're just more volatile, right?
And a lot of people think we're in a flat market right now, but Highland Park's going up every year.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's pretty nuanced. I think the unfun part of trying to squeeze every 20 years out of your cosmetics is like you're a few years into it. If you're still trying to rent that same kitchen and bathroom 8 years from now, that's the unfun part, that sounds to me, because you're renting to people who just don't really have a lot of options.
I figure you're at about a 10 to 15 year, depending on how you do it when you do it, right? Like we went from 2009 to about 2020, so about 11, 12 years, somewhere in that range on between our remodels of our places that we kept. Mm-hmm. And I think you can get about that and still be reasonable. And after that, you're going to take a little bit of a hit.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it is all going to boil down to just you personally. If you're going to sit there and look at it, because if you look at the reality of it, the tenant is still going to take it, right? And if you need proof of that, look at what I'm renting, right? It's safe, it's clean, but are you going to look at it and say, wow? Probably not, right?
Sure.
There's still, some scenarios where we're using like Menard's oak cabinets, unfinished, and we won't finish them. We'll install them unfinished, and you get unfinished cabinets.
Yeah.
You get what you pay for, and that's not just North Minneapolis. That's not just Section 8.
That's actually not a bad option for these people,
No.
right? The fact that it's not finished doesn't really matter to them. It's nicer and it's not rotted or anything else compared to some of the other things they see, right?
Yeah, and then down the line, so like what we do is sometimes after a tenant's if they're really hard on those cabinets, because you didn't finish them, as long as they didn't punch holes in them, if it's just dirty, you can clean it and then you splash a coat of paint on it for the first time. Mm-hmm. Then they're brand new, right? So that $100 cabinet just lasted you 2 tenants, and then your job is to make sure you keep that head in the door really long. So 2 tenants is not 2 years. 2 tenants is 10 years.
Yeah.
Then you got your money.
And there's such a scarcity with available Section 8 housing still, correct?
No. So Minneapolis and St. Paul, I believe, have now have like city ordinances that don't let you discriminate on the payments side of things. So if you're a landlord in Minneapolis, you're not allowed to say I don't take Section 8.
Although you can
Really?
have ones that don't meet the payment standards, and then there's nothing you can do.
There's that, but you can still have rental criteria. So if you need a 600 credit
Okay.
score and they have Section 8, but they don't have a 600 credit score, you can turn them down. As long as they meet your rental criteria, you have to take them.
But I thought you can't judge based on only credit score anymore. Or is that just St. Paul?
Well,
I can't keep any of this shit straight.
that's Minneapolis. St. Paul, I don't think they have that rule. Minneapolis has that rule, but
Yeah.
you can't use credit
It's so
score
confusing.
only. That Minneapolis is a little complicated, but it's worth mentioning. So we use a credit score to start, meaning that the first line of checking that we have does use credit score. But if a person fails on credit score, we have to give them an alternative route to qualifying.
Yeah.
And we have that set up, right? So it is possible to use credit score. It's just if the person fails credit score, you can't just automatically decline them. You have to give them basically more of a chance to get. They call it their term for it is individualized assessment, and we came up with a pretty extensive thing, and we think it's pretty fair, and we can document and judge it. And a lot of the times for us, it's just like, can we even prove that they can afford this? And the one thing I'll say on Section 8, we've had a couple people that we didn't approve because we knew they couldn't afford the utilities. They didn't, because Section 8 will give anyone my rent.
Yeah.
But then they have to pay 30% of their income. If their income's too low, and we have a 5-bedroom duplex, and we know that in the dead of the winter, that thing's $500 a month, they still have to pay for electric, and they have to pay for their food and anything else. If their leftover money at the end of a month is, let's say, $600-700 a month, they can't afford our place even if they get Section 8, right? So there are ways you can reasonably go, hey, this isn't going to work. For sure. And it's not because we're being mean.
I'm going to blow both of your minds right now, and you're going to hate this. I don't think you're going to see another landlord say this. I might be wrong. For the first, 50 units, I didn't even do a background check. Nothing. And then I started doing them, and now I think I'm going to go back to not doing them.
Yeah.
I promise you. It's so think about my demographic of like where these are at.
Yeah. No one's going to pass a background check is what you're saying?
I either got to lower them. So you see all the credit scores that I normally see on a day-to-day. What do you assume I see? It's not 7 or 6.
I don't know how low a credit score can go.
It goes low.
You must see 460, 470, 480.
3s, 4s, and 5s.
3s.
5s were like
3s means you're almost on your deathbed.
Yeah, you're terrible. They go low.
Yeah.
Right? I don't think I've ever seen a 6. Ever. To be completely honest with you, you guys probably get 6s all the time. That's a normal thing.
I'm in the
Not in my
eights.
Section
My
8.
median's probably 8.
Not in my Section
ballpark.
8, I don't. In Section 8, I definitely don't. But yeah,
So
we're
my
also
whole
not
thing was-
focusing on credit score. We're focusing on payment history. We actually look more at the credit report, not the score when it comes to Section 8.
So you could do that, like look at how many late payments and thing like that.
Yeah.
But, so I'd say venture to say somewhere in the 90% of my tenants are Section 8.
Yep.
And so within reason, you can assume that you're going to get some of your money, right? You're going to get some.
And a big percentage, actually, right? Like about 90%.
Usually.
Yeah.
We do have tenants that are actually like
Paying
Section
50%
8,
or something like that.
50%.
Yeah.
So what's
But those are the
your
best
process?
those are
If
actually
I'm
the best
applying,
tenants.
Is there even an application? Do I just get to move in?
First come, first serve. It's listed, Now, generally,
Are there any qualifications at all that you look for?
like I said, now we started doing it.
Yeah.
But again, when I wasn't, and I think that's where I'm going to switch to back again, is that you find that once you have a certain amount of units, it'll balance out. To the guys starting out, your first one has to work.
Sure.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, you've got 80. You're going to have some good and some bad.
You're going to have some good and some
What
bad.
if you have some like violent sexual deviance?
Well, that's the other thing I was thinking is particularly the violent, not necessarily the sexual deviant, but yeah, like if you're in a duplex and you got like a serious violent, maybe a sexual deviant, along with
I don't know why I came up with that.
along
It's
with
the worst
a single mother that has kids, that can be oil and water, right? I mean, like.
I think they have to register though, like all the sex offender and things like that. They have to do that on their own and notify.
That's a good point. They do have to. I guess I don't know the specifics.
Me neither. So to be honest, not that this is like
You're
what
also
we're-
not a sex offender, Ozzy. Why did we just sound like two guys pretending to not be sex offenders?
Yeah, very sketch.
Yeah.
And Tim's awfully quiet in that corner, so now we got to ask questions. No, I mean, here's the thing. Not that this is like a discriminatory thing that we seek out single mothers that have a Section 8 voucher. It just tends to happen.
Yeah, you're right.
9 times out of 10.
Yeah.
And so when
That's who gets the Section 8. You don't get Section 8 unless you have children, do you? I mean,
No, not really.
Not really. I mean, we haven't seen one yet anyway.
I haven't, and so we had a running joke within a couple of landlord like friends that we have a group chat. It's like, have you ever seen a guy with Section 8? I'm like, I have never. I mean,
Oh, that's a good point.
I've never seen it. And so we had a pool.
I'm scanning my head right now. No, the answer is no. I haven't had
Isn't
one
that crazy?
person even look at a property that is a male Section 8.
Never.
We have had a couple.
Couple.
Right? Yeah.
But
But I've never had a male who doesn't have a woman with him have Section 8.
So there was a pool, $500, whoever gets one. And I ended up getting.
Yeah, well, that's not even fair. You got 83. They got 3.
No, they're bigger than me.
Okay.
So, and then randomly a guy calls me, or a girl calls me, and she's a caseworker, and she's like, I got a guy, 9 kids, got a voucher, all his, from the same woman. Like,
What?
He's the killer. He's 33.
33, 9 kids, all with the same woman.
Yeah.
And
But
she's not with
in
him?
the picture?
She's the domestic abuser. So he's running away from her out in a different county. And
That's
like,
his story.
oh, so yeah. So, she's,
It can happen. One of our big things we never accepted was a domestic abuser because it's one of the few problems I've run into a couple times in my landlording, and I had an employee, female employee that I hired back in the mortgage business, and I hired her. She had domestic abuse on her credit check because every loan officer has to have a background check, and I thought, oh, Big deal. Woman, domestic abuser, no problem. Oh my God, I couldn't wait to get rid of her. Was she so abusive? She was abusive to me, big time. Everyone in the company at one point she abused. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But with, I mean, legit threats and like anger and like yelling and like you think she's going to throw something at you stuff. I mean, like it was like not comfortable. And I'm like, I thought, oh, no big deal. And then we ran into a couple things as tenants. And it's one of the ones that I'm most on edge for because I think if someone has that tendency, they are a ticking time bomb.
For sure. Yeah,
Anyway,
you're going to get a mixed bag. Yeah, for sure. And so like I definitely, some of these things, you know, when somebody's watching this show or watching other real estate tips, you know, you got a lot of stuff that just you have to sift through and see what works for you personally, right? A lot of the things that work for somebody might not work for the next guy. People have different investment goals too, right? So my whole thing was, if we're being transparent, these properties are not the, you know, Taj Mahal. They're ugly, right? My thing is, how much uglier can you make it? Like, can the tenant really get it before it becomes a real problem? Well, then the answer is usually not much, right?
Okay.
And our thought process is we're going to do a full remodel and list market price somewhere down the line when we feel like there's enough spread. Where if I feel like I can pocket 150, 200 off of a single family, maybe I paid it down, maybe the prices went up, and that could be 15 or 20 years from now, right? That's when you non-renew and or whatever the case may be. If the tenant's good, maybe you shuffle them around or whatever we have going on at that point. So again, you know, maybe you sell before the roof comes due. Our thing is, can the roof last? You know, because if the roof is, again, if it's 20 years old, from a contractor's perspective, licensed, I can tell you, they throw things out there that's like, well, 20 years, but okay, a water heater is supposed to give you what, 15, 20 max?
Yeah, but we see them from 89 all the time.
You got some that are...
Yeah.
I bought the first house I ever bought. They said it needed a new roof. That was in 2015, and then I sold it in 2021 to people, and the inspector's like, "Oh, it really needs a new roof." And then I just helped those people sell the same house to somebody else, and
it's still
inspector's like, "You got to replace this roof." I'm like, "Well, we've been hearing that for 11 years, sir."
I'm Ozzy. I'm totally with you, but like most of the people who are listening to this podcast are not contractors, and the roof's going to cost them, 16 to 25,000. It's going to cost you 8. 7, right? Something like that, right? Yeah. So there's a difference there, right? And my other thought process too was, okay, let's say you have a roof that you put on today. I'd say just keep that house, 15 years, not 20 or something like that, right? That's just my point.
Situational, for sure.
Yeah, situational, for sure. Each one you're going to look at differently.
The $1 million idea I had like 25 podcasts ago. Remember, I was going to become the only realtor in the Twin Cities who's also a roofer, but it was going to be a not-for-profit roofing company.
No shit.
Okay, so I've got my GC license, I've got my subs, and then because dude, realtors we become like sewer and roofing experts. That's like 25% of my day. And then I talked to a couple actual roofers, and they're like, here's the thing, it's your warranty on that roof.
Yeah, you don't want to
do that. Then my whole business model falls apart.
Well, you can always give it, like, there's plenty of guys, and, I can put you in touch with guys that are, roofing is only expensive. And this is the thing. It's not as big of a deal as people always assume you're going to spend 15. You're going to spend 15 if there's a storm. So if a storm comes and like it hasn't hit your house, but all these roofers are swimming in money because they're billing insurance left and right, you're going to pay top dollar. They're busy. Today, there hasn't been a storm. You call a roofer right now, you're not paying 15. Not for, the houses we're talking about.
I just did one for 9. That's what I was saying. So that's why I know that you could do it for 7.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, you can forego $1,000 of your commission and still do it. Like if it needs a roof, like I'm the roof guy, and then you don't take the warranty.
Yeah.
I
just want to know the subs because it's like Tim and I work with the guys who would be subs for the GCs, so I feel like we're already getting like pretty rock bottom labor pricing for the cosmetics. I just don't have the guy to call up who is the roofing crew.
Yeah,
you know
the
what I'm
GC.
saying?
Yeah, the guy.
I gotta call the GC. I want to go around the GC.
Yeah, everybody wants to go around.
I'll pay you $1,000
to GC it. Just to put your.
I want the phone number. I want the introduction to the guy, the roofer. And then assuming he's legit, I'll pay you $1,000.
You're looking at one. I could do a roof.
No, dude, you're the guy that I don't want to. Well, whatever. maybe I'm misunderstanding.
Yeah,
dude, we've been talking to you for a long time.
Yeah. I think it's really awesome, though. Let's. Okay, so
are you doing okay on time? It's
yeah.
One. Okay, cool.
You're not gonna So what are you seeing that's just changing your attitude towards, so first of all, I think you're right. I think you have enough scale that you're basically self-insuring.
There you go.
Right? Because you are, even if you do background checks, you're going to find problems. My thought process, maybe you don't do background checks at all for credit anymore, but I think you still do it for criminal, in my personal opinion.
Maybe.
It's up to you,
Maybe.
but
That might be a
I'm
good
thinking
addition.
that's like, because here's the other thing too, is like, you don't necessarily need to do the drug dealer, and it's probably best to try to filter those out, right?
Yeah.
And you probably don't need to use the, again, the abuser. Those are the ones that really can create some real, in my opinion, I've seen some real headaches.
Yeah, I mean, and again, when you meet somebody, you'll tell, like, there's people that showed up high and not from weed, like, to these showings. I don't know what the legal ramifications are. Do I have to document this because I didn't give him a fair shot or whatever the case may be? But if a judge ever were to ask me, it's something I can live with. He came high, right? I'm not doing it. And if a fine comes with that, then a fine comes with that, right? But I do think, like, as you scale, the way you have to do things. So I always joke, everybody's a slumlord when they start out just because they don't know what they're doing, right? And then so you graduate and you start saying, then you have two roads you can go down. You can shape up as a landlord because now you know, or you keep going down that path of like dumpy work, dumpy tenants, dumpy areas. You can never relocate the house that you own. It's in the area that it's in, okay? But you can do the best you can. Like, you can be a clean, North Minneapolis home. Old doesn't necessarily mean bad. I mean, you see Summit and people pay millions for old. It's just about what you do with it, right? You don't want to be the guy that's slapping white paint over everything that you can find, right? But yeah, as far as a single family perspective, we're just, in general, I'm getting out of those, that asset class in terms of new purchases. So that last one, that was that 20 unit. And that was a huge money maker.
Ozzy, where is that 20 unit property anyway?
That one is on the east side of St. Paul, right off of Maryland. You make a left on Clarence. So by that strip mall. So, okay, where they have Cub Foods and Aldi?
Yeah.
Okay, we're on the other side.
Wait, Aldi.
They just, Aldi's new.
Is that new?
Yeah, newish. So where the Cub Foods on Maryland.
Yeah. I know that. Dude, I lived like blocks from that place.
Yeah, there's the Aldi right across the street.
Yeah. Okay. That's new.
They built a new Class A looking strip mall. They have like a laundromat and I think Verizon or something.
Oh, yeah. There was a liquor. Is Dairy Queen's right there? That strip mall?
So Dairy
right
Queen
across
shut
the
down.
street?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So where that strip mall across the street, that rundown one with the liquor store in the corner.
Yep.
So if you go right behind those, there's like an acre full of townhomes.
Okay.
Townhomes. I use that term
Loosely.
But that's what we bought.
Okay.
So essentially what they are is, it's apartments. It's 1 or 2 PIDs, but they're shaped like they're townhomes. You'd never guess that they were apartments. Nothing stacked vertically, right? All 2s, 3s, and 4 beds. And chased that deal for probably 2 years before we actually got to close. Sellers.
Interesting. You've only been doing this 3.
It was like,
what does that cost, man? That sounds like a pricey 20 unit.
I got it pretty much free. I'll be honest with you. Like, money out of pocket, virtually nothing. I mean, so what ended up happening was we went back and forth, and so this is a HUD property. This is a HUD contract property. So are you guys familiar with project-based Section 8?
I don't. Oh, I've heard of it, but no, I don't know. No.
So I'll give you the quick rundown. Instead of a voucher assigned to an individual, the voucher, the contract is tied to the property.
Yeah.
So, for example, you know how long it takes to get Section 8, and there's a lot of people that want it but can't get it. We have it on this property. Essentially what happens if somebody doesn't have Section 8, you guys can move in. All we do is we take your income, and long story short, if you overqualify, you could still live there, but you're going to pay all the rent out of pocket. Versus if you make no money, then we get that subsidy from HUD, and they'll calculate portions and whatnot. So to a person that's like, well, I'm only making $12,000 a year, and I don't have a Section 8 voucher, I'm kind of screwed. Can't really get, pay rent anywhere normally. But then there's these HUD properties where you can go in and, okay, you'll pay that same percentage. But if you leave, that doesn't transfer with you, right?
So it keeps them there. They're real sticky, and they probably are willing to obey rules a little bit more because they don't want to get kicked out.
We keep those guys in line. I mean, at first, I didn't know this. and our job was to get this off of the contract. So we spent the first 6 months pretty much all the time of owning it, trying to get out of that program. We got that approved.
Really? You didn't want to be on the program? Mm-mm. Okay.
And now I'm changing my tune, so I have until really August of this year to give a final. So I think I'm going to keep it.
Yeah. So let's talk about the difference.
And
Like,
how'd
so
you
you
buy it?
wanted to get off it. What was your logic there? Because I was thinking that would be the beauty of this one in that area.
Rents are a little lower. So if you go look at what we get payment standard versus, Section 8.
Oh, they have different payment standards for that? Okay.
It's a smidge lower, yeah. So, like the 2 bedrooms, we're getting $1,440. So it's not terrible. I just raised those to $1,440. They were $1,200, right?
But it's like a townhome experience for the tenant.
Oh, yeah. I mean, so you can Google these. They're called Etna Woods townhomes, ETNA. And it's just a multi-building,
I know exactly where it is. I mean, when I say I lived by there, I mean, I'm just trying to think of like long blocks about to the edge of our property, about 3 blocks, and then 2 blocks in.
It's right about where it is, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I know exactly where that is. I'm 19 years. And I would buy that at that liquor store on occasion.
That liquor store's got to close. Everything else is doing really well in that area. They developed the heck out of everything. If you keep going down our street, you're pretty much Maplewood.
Yeah.
So
you pretty much are. Yeah.
I mean, around it, there's so many new townhomes like Phelan Shores and like the area's coming up. At Liquors, that strip mall's got to go.
The Cub Foods was a huge win for that area.
Oh yeah,
they did it. They did that right, and actually it's so weird because it's such a cooler lake than Como.
Oh yeah,
but it gets so much less money. It's a beautiful lake. It's tree lined, like instead of like really open and wide where you can see all around.
Yeah.
It's really a cool area, but it needs some city love.
Yeah.
Right, like you go to Como and they've got the newer stuff with the what do you call it? Like the decking style of fake wood benches, whereas there's the cement that's been weathered for so long that it's super rough and uncomfortable, and it just
people are walking
it doesn't get the
and-
love. I know.
Yeah, it's a nice little pocket. You're able to pull them up.
Yeah, and sorry, we
good.
can't all look at them, but yeah. So you bought this on June 1st, July 1st, 2025?
Yeah, last
for
year.
1.5 million?
1.8.
Well, it says 1.5, but maybe, anyways. There's probably some, like a seller carry in there of 300. That's why you didn't put anything down.
Not 300. So I don't have no bank financing on this. I tried, and the bank was like, listen, there's vacancies and the rents are low and you got this program. We don't really want
Normal banks don't really like that all that much. The programs themselves, the percentage of Section 8 to normal market rate rent, sometimes that'll just be a deal killer right there, right?
For sure.
And then also they'll look at economic vacancy sometimes.
It's definitely on the bank's appetite. I've had banks that say like your portfolio is great, but no, you're 95% Section 8. Then there's banks like the one that I have that's like Section 8's great. We love it. Keep doing that. Don't do the sober home thing though.
I feel like this is a great buy at 1.5 or 1.8 or whatever you bought it for.
Free.
Right?
Oh yeah, because so you guys know math, right? Rental math that like off the top of your head. So when we bought it, they were bringing in like $22K a month.
Yeah.
We raised it to 33, so we added about 11 grand.
Yeah.
Right. Expenses are
Your
virtual.
payment didn't go up to 11 grand though, did it?
No, and I got a full CD on it. So I got it for 1.8, 100 grand down.
Okay.
By the time we figured security deposits and yada yada, I think I came into closing with like 60 G's, and that was it. Right. So for 60,000, we took control of that asset. I have a CD for 4 years on it at 6% rate. Said perfect. Let's rock and roll. Well, a really good agent friend of mine that does this thing really well is multifamily sales. Takes a peek at it and he's like, dude, I have a standing offer for you, like cash as is, no inspections, $2.7 million, right? Or $2.8 million, I should say. And then, obviously we started at 1.17, with that 100 grand down. And then we probably paid 50 or 60K at this point from the AM schedule that I'm looking. So then you go and you look like, well, 6 months worth of work, we can sell out and make $1 million, right? you lose all appetite for single family after that. You're like, you know, and so you shift out of it completely. And so now it's just finding these multifamilies.
Finding the deals where you can do that. Yeah.
And this one was listed on LoopNet?
No. So this was
Because I just found it on LoopNet, but maybe...
they do have like for lease. I shouldn't be listed.
No, old listing, but it might be something else. Or this also could have been from 2013 and it's just showing.
So
anyways, how did you find the deal?
Brad. So shout out to Brad.
Oh, Brad Smith.
Brad Smith. Brad and Mark, actually, to be fair. They pitched it. I said I'd love it. And then we were actually supposed to get them for $1.4 million. That's the price I was pitched. Killer. Would love that. Well, you know, couldn't.
Oh, was the additional going for wholesale or not?
Yeah, they were going to make a couple $100,000 on it.
Yeah.
So I think it was still going to land at like 1.6, right?
Okay.
Or 1.55.
Which, by the way, is totally fair, right? I mean, it's still a killer
Absolutely.
deal, and you don't find that deal without them making money. So, yeah.
Right. They ended up, you know, they were really cool about it, but we actually couldn't pay them how this came out because essentially we tried to get it and we couldn't, and we let the deal fall apart, right? And they shopped it around.
Oh, so you were trying to buy it more traditional?
Yeah,
at the
time,
ones. Yeah, I gotcha. Okay.
And so when that fell apart, the owners were shopping it around at that point. I think they had it sold a couple times and people backed out, and you know somebody took a CD on it and then shipped it back to them and said, keep that. You know,
So it's a real problem property to manage, and
I think people. So here's the thing: we got really lucky with the rent raise. You're not supposed to be able to raise the rent like that, but essentially, in the easiest way to put it, HUD needed something from us, and we wanted money from HUD, and so it's one of those scratch my back situations. And so we gave them what they wanted when we didn't have to, you know, and then.
So do you mind sharing what you gave them?
what does that mean?
Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
You
It's just
conceded something, obviously, right?
So here's the thing with these HUD contracts. They are grandfathered in. They don't make anymore. So if you go and build a new one, you can't get this contract anymore. The thought process when you go in as an investor is that when I get out of this, you know, contract, it's just going to vanish into thin air. It just doesn't exist anymore. And there's one less contract. HUD doesn't look at it that way. HUD looks at it like we're going to take that existing one and assign it to somebody else's property, a property that HUD wants to have, right? So say you have a 32 unit building, right? And there's no subsidy. Well, I mean, this is affordable housing, guys. So it's like they don't want to throw it away. So they'll take it from my property because I don't want it. They can't make any more of it. So they'll give it to him and just assign the...
They're not allowed by their own rules, probably congressional law, that they can't do this anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it's just not a program that exists at this point, right?
Got it.
So,
Okay.
you know, from what I was told from the HUD representative. And so here's where the tricky part comes in. 20 units is considered big if you're doing single families, but it's considered pretty small on the multi side.
Yeah, for sure it is.
So most of these guys, you know, if you, for example, have a normal like 36 unit, you can find a bunch of those types of buildings. Well, the contract amount that I have per year has to be big enough to where it makes sense for him to transfer to his property. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So if he has 36 two bedrooms and his rent roll is $50,000 a month, right?
He doesn't want a $33,000 contract.
He does not want a 30.
Well, he doesn't want a 22, especially, right?
20, yeah.
So them raising it helped them be able to transfer it to another property in the future if you do get rid of it?
Yeah, if I get rid of it. Which I later find out they say no, but brokers say yes. You can sell your contract to a broker that will figure out a way to assign it to somebody else 25 cents on the dollar. So my contract right now is 33,000 whatever times 12, right? So call that
400,000? Yeah.
Yeah, so you'll get
You can get
$100,000.
$100,000 to assign it to someone else.
Will you say it one more time? What's the name of these
Project based. So project based Section 8. And I can send you some literature onto that as well.
Do you have any idea how many of those are in the Twin Cities?
Not in the Twin Cities, but what I was told is that there's 10,000 nationwide.
Okay.
Which is not very many.
No. And so it's in their best interest to give me as much money front loaded as possible so that because wherever that contract ends at is where it starts for a new owner.
The next one.
So they're like, well, if you leave, you know, X, Y, Z. And so we put together, you still have to do a rent comparability study from independent partner, firm. So Nicollet Partners did ours. And, you know, obviously found that we're well below market.
Oh yeah, it sounds like you're still even below market, even at 33, based on what you said. With the type of properties and the number of units and stuff.
It should be right around that 39 to 40 mark for that building. So yeah, I mean that we got lucky with that. We raised it right away, and then obviously the bank comes knocking like, hey, can we refinance that? And obviously now it's no, you didn't put up the money to begin with, and I have a CD at 6%. I'm no interest to give it to you, not now.
Yeah, I'll refinance it at 4.7%.
4.7%, yeah.
Like the hot girl that took off her glasses. She's not a nerd. She's hot.
Dude, this is awesome. I mean, I honestly I could keep talking to you for longer, but I think maybe we have to do episode 2 and 3.
Might have to. Yeah.
Yeah, we got it. We got it. I gave us 3 hours today. You realize that? But
Did you really?
I have a 2 o'clock.
How long have we been here?
We've been talking for 2 hours and 15 minutes. Dude.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that's the longest. That's almost double our normal podcast.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Well, we kept cutting guests off when they were kind of just getting cooking because I was scheduling like 2-hour blocks for the podcast, and starting this week now I'm scheduling 3-hour blocks. So
Yeah. Fair.
if you guys are listening, if you don't want to listen to 2-hour podcasts, let us know right away before we start doing it all the time.
Yeah, but at least I don't know. I
Gotta
think
do like 2 minutes.
anyone
shorts.
who doesn't like this podcast doesn't like real estate podcasts in the Twin Cities, because this is pretty awesome.
Fair.
Good stuff, man.
Yeah, man. Thank you guys for having me.
What are you doing next? Like, you have any goals or anything you're working on right now? Like, just to wrap things up here?
Yeah, there's, the immediate site is a 36 unit out in Brooklyn Center that I just fell in love with. It's got value add written all over it. And so, somebody put it up for sale, and I think is now realizing that maybe they don't want to sell it. So the convincing part is what we're working on now, all the schmoozing and just trying to make sure that if they do sell it, it's to me.
Nice.
Cool.
Yeah.
So bigger buildings.
Bigger buildings.
Sweet.
If you know anybody that wants a whole bunch of single families, you let me know. Yeah.
Oh man, this is
certainly will.
awesome. Good stuff.
Awesome.
Glad we got a chance to meet. Glad I
Absolutely.
didn't meet you that day, right?
Yeah. No kidding.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thank
Ozzy.
you
We'll see
guys.
ya.
All right,
Absolutely.
buddy. Thanks.
So what's going on today, Tim?
Whew, man, lots. But just been busy lately, right? I mean, things are picking up business wise and personal wise. Yeah, my daughter's got a lacrosse game tonight.
Nice.
What I really want to talk about now, we've mentioned it before, but like things are finalized, and by the time this podcast comes out, you'll want to buy your tickets, as we have InvestFest, right? InvestFest is going to be the largest social meetup for real estate investors in the Twin Cities, and it is a collaboration between all the biggest other groups in the Twin Cities. So I'll probably miss one, so forgive me that I do, but we're talking about Rebel, Lyft, Fuse Real Estate, and the MN Real Estate Club, which is the same guy, right? Mike Moe's meetup, which I don't know what he calls it, so that's why I'm saying his meetup. It's also, who am I missing? Corey Wright's Legacy Group.
Kurt Pauley?
Kurt Pauley's group.
Yeah.
I don't know if he has a name for his per se, but so that's 6, and I don't know. I probably missed a group or two, so apologize if I did. I wasn't trying to, but like just an amazing bunch of different groups all getting together to kind of raise the collaboration vibe and just the whole spirit of the Twin Cities when it comes to real estate investing. We're gonna make it fun by having some like speed dating type activities that we're gonna do, like certain questions you're supposed to answer for people, or that kind of thing. Like we talked about a couple of different ideas, and I would say that is like not quite finalized, but we're gonna have that. And from the podcast perspective, we're gonna have a secondary room where we're just gonna rapid fire interview people, somewhere between 10 and 15 minute short interviews that will end up on this show at some point.
Yeah. I was talking to Katie about this the other day, because I'm like, I need you here tonight, because we'll probably have someone kind of wrangling guests for us, and then somebody shuttling them to us, so we can do like quick interviews, maybe with like certain prompts, like come in and tell us like a crazy landlording story or something like that.
Yeah, it'll be somewhere along those lines. And I mean, I kind of want, one of my thoughts was someone would, like you, listener whatever A will be talking to listener B, and listener B will tell you a crazy story, and you'll basically nominate them and say, I think you should be on the show. And they'll just say, right?
Oh, that's a good idea.
That's kind of how I see that working. I think it's the best because it really creates some sort of engagement. And then, look, people will kind of want to share some of their wildest stories, and it might take them meeting 2 or 3 people to get the courage to really go for it. But I think there's some fun stuff to be had, and it's a couple hour evening, right? It's 5:30 to 8:30. It's at Boom Island Brewing, which is in Minnetonka. I'll probably have to get a hotel room to go that far. And it is May 12th. There is a fire person limit, so it's limited to 200 people, not 201. So the MN Real Estate Club gets at least 70, if not 100 on their own. Kurt, I think I've been to his, and I think he probably draws a solid 40 to 50. We're bringing in 30-ish on sometimes to 50 on a big time.
Yeah. So that's 200.
Rebel. So the point is, and there's some overlap, but the point is you're going to want to get your tickets early. It is $25. There is an actual cost. Shuck has fronted the thousands of dollars up front that we needed. So they're kind of like the sponsor of the thing. And if there's any money left over, I think the general idea is it'll go to charity, but we're also thinking this could be an annual thing. So that's not set in stone. We might throw that money into an account for the next one, but
that's a good idea.
No profit happening and no salaries happening, so to speak. So it's just whatever. But yeah, we want to see people there, and I'd love to see people I haven't seen in years, right? Let's if you haven't been out and you're excited about investing again, or you want to get excited about investing, please come and meet with other people.
Cool. Yeah, I'm excited.
That's really all I got. We just had a long podcast, so unless you got something else, I'd say.
No, I think that's it. When is our next meetup? Let's see. This is going to go.
It was supposed to be May 13th, but that's going to have to get canceled because it doesn't make sense for us to try to draw from the same group of people that are going to be there the night. I think we don't do anything for May, right? Or we push it back a couple weeks so it's not the night after InvestFest.
I don't think people care. No, I want to do that meetup. That's the offer writing meetup, right? You think people won't go because InvestFest was the day before?
That was kind of my thought. Plus other people were all saying the groups are. I think there's a kind of a verbal agreement that we're not going to do anything within a week of it, so that there's not a bunch of people. So all the groups are not drawing from that same time period. Gotcha. We can talk about it.
Anyways, we'll talk about it there. All right, guys. So unknown when our next meetup is, but you can go to TwinCitiesRealEstateInvesting.com.
And you can certainly sign up for it because if it's there, you're going to get notified either way. Matter of fact, we need to send out some messages. We're going to send out one about InvestFest and our other meetup. So you'll get a few messages from us through that meetup channel. That's kind of how you'll get notifications.
Sweet.
All right.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks,
Cheers.
Ozzy, for being a great guest. See you later.
Bye.
That's it for today's show. You can visit the TwinCitiesRealEstateInvesting.com website for show notes, tips, tricks, and other local real estate investing information. Adam and Tim would like to meet with you. To schedule a one-on-one meeting with either Adam or Tim, go to TwinCitiesRealEstateInvesting.com/schedule.